Yeah, the only regret a little bit, I have to review the game a little bit, is that we allowed them to run a little bit more than expected.
A familiar problem was their downfall, according to Jamie Jackson. Leaky defence cost them yet again.
They can be got at too easy, and this was the problem last season, essentially. Yes, they just too often, as I say, you know, very rare before that. I can remember one game, maybe Ivan Toney, that's how far back it was for Brentford. Before the World Cup, he scored a couple of goals and he got turned over this way. But it's so rare, or it was so rare. Now it's become the way to beat them.
Well, a loss is a loss, but we've also been warned the consequences of this will affect City in the Premier League next season.
We've now been away for a month, 5 weeks, whatever it may be. Now you've got the problem of what does that knock-on effect have for next season? You know, the players are going to be a little bit more fatigued come November, December time because they haven't had this break. You haven't been able to maybe use that 150 million to buy new players because you haven't got it. Simple as that. So your squad isn't as big as maybe you hoped.
Elsewhere, Brentford's new boss, Keith Andrews, has had his first press conference and he's spoken about how he's been eyeing up a role of this kind for a long time.
2 or 3 years ago, I knew I was ready to be a head coach. Would I have foreseen it being this role at this level? Probably not, realistically. Look, the path I've taken has been very deliberate to get to this stage.
And Jack Draper leads the British Challenge on day 2 of Wimbledon after a record-breaking start for the home players. He's admitted he's feeling pretty relaxed ahead of it all too.
You guys have asked me a lot about the pressure and all this sort of stuff, but I'm not thinking about that at all. I'm thinking about how I can play my tennis out there.
All your latest is at talksport.com.
Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Jim White and Simon Jordan. We're live on talkSPORT. So Manchester City, dumped out of the Club World Cup by Al Hilal, have the Premier League just been given an almighty embarrassing Saudi slap. Meantime, the manager heading for the exit, wages unpaid again and threats of player walkouts. What next for Sheffield Wednesday? Also today, how long will Palace remain in UEFA limbo land? In a time of child obesity, should the humble sporting playing field be put out to pasture? Has the women's team become the perfect PSR cheat code? Plus, we'll be joined live by former Rangers owner and chairman Sir David Murray to detail an ownership which encompassed both huge success followed by near disaster for the football club. It's Jim White and Simon Jordan, and we are live on talkSPORT.
100% engagement. Jim White and Simon Jordan on talkSPORT.
So I ambled round this morning, Simon, in my 10-minute walk.
That's all you can do in this weather, isn't it?
It's all you can do. And then when I pulled into the coffee shop, because I don't know if you know, while you're getting into your limo at this stage, I always nip in and buy producer Luca coffee from a coffee shop at the foot of the road.
Very nice.
And when I walked into reception, I was absolutely covered in perspiration.
Hot,
it is so warm.
Yeah, very hot, yeah.
It is so warm. And I tell you what, we can take refuge in this building because air conditioning is a must at the moment.
Absolutely. I walked my son to school this morning and it was absolutely boiling. So yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You walked him to school?
I'm acclimatised to this, having lived in Spain for years, but there's something different about the heat in London or metropolitan cities, isn't it? When I was living in New York, the heat was obscene. And we moan and bitch and whine about the weather all year. Then we get hot weather and we moan and bitch and whine about that.
This is true.
So it's the national habit to find something to complain about. But it is bloody hot, isn't it?
I don't think you had to walk too far to take the wee fella to school. Did you not say he's virtually in the same complex?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
All right, okay.
But it's still 150 yards.
A lot to get into this morning, and I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, being from Glasgow and having grown up with the old firm in mind, I'm particularly, Simon, looking forward to speaking to the former Rangers owner and chairman, Sir David Murray, who did so much for that football club over so many years.
Yeah.
But then many fans would say, yeah, but you sold to this Craig White.
Yeah.
And that then prompted disaster for the football club.
David Murray is quite a remarkable man in so many ways. From the businesses that he's built, to the adversity he's overcome personally.
He lost his legs in a car crash.
To the challenges that he's had with running Rangers and building them up to being a significant football club again at different times, of Souness involved and all the different direction of travels. And of course, people will equate the Craig White position to some extent, but I think he's a remarkably gifted man.
Oh yeah, he's a force of nature in business. Of that there is no doubt. So Wimbledon off and running on a scorcher. 7 British winners, Simon, the most successful opening day ever. Yeah. And now we're looking at Jack Draper today to carry it on. His campaign gets underway. He takes on Argentina's Sebastian Baez. But it has been a great start. For the Brits.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we've got this huge event that sort of eclipses. Not just eclipses, but it is the biggest of the slams, and it's the most reputable tournament in the world. And England is associated with the evolution of tennis, but we never seem to produce a raft of tennis players. And we were talking to Andy Murray's brother Jamie the other day, weren't we?
Yeah.
About the state of British tennis, and he was like, I said, is it getting any better? Are we going to see a reliable train of players coming through that replaces your brother, and perhaps runs alongside Jack Draper's of the world? And he didn't seem to be too optimistic. Yet here we are today with a litany of British tennis players in our tournament going through. So I think it's great. And I mean, obviously, I hope there's a conveyor belt. I hope that we can see more competitive, more elite British tennis players.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a great game, and it's great for the British psyche. And obviously every year, this time of year, the whole world becomes a tennis fan, and every tennis court is occupied.
Absolutely.
But it's a fabulous sport. The challenge it's got now is that paddle and other sports are really coming up and taking a bite out of it. No, seriously, you saw Nick Kyrgios say it the other day.
Yeah.
That's precisely what he said.
Yeah.
He said that the sport, the LTA, the paddle is governed by the LTA, which means they're trying to strangle it.
Yeah.
So, but the bottom line is it's great to see tennis at Wimbledon with British players being significantly part of it.
I'm enjoying what I'm hearing from Nick Kyrgios and other shows on talkSPORT. He's been a great addition to the staff here over the summer period leading up to Wimbledon, and now we're into the tournament itself. 2 friends of mine, Craig and Anna, had a great day at Wimbledon yesterday, one of the best days ever, they were saying, in spite of the heat. It was just something else. There's a magic about Wimbledon, of that there is no doubt. Of this there is no doubt. It's a Club World Cup over in the US, and it's producing the odd shocker too. Al Hilal dumped Manchester City out at the last 16. So let's have a look at that now, courtesy of DAZN.
FIFA Club World Cup Roundup on talkSPORT, presented by DAZN. Watch every game of the FIFA Club World Cup live and for free on DAZN. Sign up now at DAZN.com.
So, have the Premier League just been given an almighty embarrassing Saudi slap? 2 goals in extra time from Al Hilal sees them beat Manchester City 4-3 and move into the last 8. Before we get Simon's take, this is Pep's take post-match.
Yeah, it's a pity because we have been in incredible journeys here together. We have been in a so good place. The vibe was really good, and I can say not thank enough to the staff, Vaco staff, and especially the players, how they training, how they play in every single game, giving everything. The margins as winners, so it's true that they've run at conditions a little bit, but the way we create was a lot in set pieces and in actions. Bono making incredible saves. Nothing to say. We would have loved to continue because it's not easy to be here once every 4 years. And we were there. I had the feeling that the team still have that feeling that the team is doing well. But yeah, we go home and now time to rest, to refresh our minds, and we come back for the next season.
I mean, fair enough. He's trying to gloss over it a fair bit, in my view. Is this a statement result for the Saudi Pro League, Simon, and those who are sniffy towards it?
Possibly. Is it a moving of tectonic plates in world football? It's a moment in time. It's a moment in time when the Saudi Arabians beat Argentina at the World Cup, who went on and won the World Cup, the Argentinians. And so you look at this result in isolation and say, yeah, it's a shot in the arm. The Saudis will take enormous pleasure from this. It's a tournament to some extent that's being backed by the Saudis. And of course, Infantino would be snivelling up to them instantaneously by saying the new era of football has definitely started.
Yeah.
Because he knows where his bread's buttered.
What do you think that means? Do you think he's serious about that?
Well, I think what it does is he knows there's an enormous amount of investment in sport. He knows that the Saudi Pro League is enormously invested in by the Saudi state. He knows that DAZN are a broadcaster that have been in part bought by Saudi. He knows that some of the money behind this tournament is Saudi money. So he's cozying up to the money in the same way he cozies up to Trump. The reasons why the World Cup is in America is not because the Americans are natural home for football. It's because Donald Trump in his first presidency did a deal that suggested to FIFA they'd get 15 billion out of this World Cup. So they ran towards the money, and Infantino is running towards the money. Now, does it suggest that Saudi should be taken more seriously? Well, nobody's not taken them seriously, but what people have railed back against is the hysteria that they're going to break up the game, that they're going to feature in the Champions League, that everything's going to be on their terms, and that they are going to destroy or dominate football. And when I hear Ronaldo talk about who's paid to say these sort of things, he isn't paid £200 million a year or whatever he's paid.
340.
Right, okay. I mean, these
That's the new wage.
These obscene scales of money.
Yeah.
For saying anything other than that he believes it's one of the top 5 leagues in the world. So who does he believe it's better than? Does he believe it's better? He can't believe it's better than the Premier League. He can't believe it's better than La Liga. He can't believe it's better than Serie A. He can't believe it's better than Bundesliga. So the current European champions are in Liga in France. So does he believe it's better than Liga? And does he believe it's better than Eredivisie? Does he believe it's better than the Portuguese league? Maybe. But I think at this moment in time, what it is the reasons why people are a little bit sniffy about it is because they don't like the economics of what the Saudis are doing. And there's nothing constructive about it. If you're going to turn around to people and say, I'm going to pay you £250 million a year, £350 million a year, tax-free to kick a football around, you are going to upset the apple cart of the ecosystem of football, which is held together in a very fragile state anyway. So people are going to turn around and say, well, that's not particularly palatable. Why don't you do it on your own merit rather than buy everybody, pay them 7 times what they're worth, and ultimately create an absolute uproar? And then other people would say, well, there's an element of that's what the Premier League did. So you pay your money, takes your choices,
of course,
but not to this quantum. I still believe that players are transient. Ronaldo will go into a football club, and whilst I make the observations that social media and the followers of social media now follow footballers more than they follow the Pope, the fact is that footballers are transient. Clubs have legacies, and in order to make something very successful, you have to have these very valuable football clubs. I don't mean economically. I mean in heritage, in history, in legacy, and in performance. And we are a long way away from Saudi Arabia having that. But they're on their pathway, and it's all part of the tapestry of football.
See, Ronaldo, even though he's gone on to this new wage of £340 million a year, he sticks to his story. He's saying no, you don't get the Saudi Pro League. He's saying only the people who have never played in Saudi Arabia and know nothing about football say this league is not top 5 in the world.
But again, I make the point. Okay,
he's saying you're not getting it. No, this league technically is very good.
But what he's saying is if you haven't kicked a football, you're not able to have an opinion on it, right? It's the same. It's a cut from the same cloth, right? So again, Cristiano. So which leagues out of the 7 or 8 leagues that I've just announced are likely to be considered the biggest domestic leagues? And I haven't even got into the South American contingent, right?
Yeah.
So which of these leagues would you consider the Saudi Pro League is bigger and better than? And then if you want to make that case to all of us that don't know football, that haven't spent our time studying it, and neither would you, my old son, if you weren't getting paid £350 million a year, you'd be somewhere else. So let's get it right. The fact that they're having to pay this enormous amount of money to be able to get people there, in fact, detracts away from the opportunity of suggesting that you take it that seriously. But you take it seriously because of the economic power of Saudi.
Yeah, wait a minute, Simon. Ronaldo knows what he's talking about, does he not? Or at least he should do. Well, he's played in Portugal. He's played, of course, in England.
Right.
He's played in Spain.
Okay.
He's played in Italy.
Okay, so are we then...
So the bottom line is, I know what you're getting to. And you're right. The money's enormous, and the money is making him make these noises. Having said that, might not just be onto something when he says This league is growing all the time. It's getting stronger and stronger.
Of course it is.
Maybe it is.
Of course it is. If you're spending this kind of money...
They just embarrassed Manchester City.
Yeah, absolutely. And, obviously Juventus didn't feel that, that Ronaldo was, something they wanted to keep on in their league. If you want to make the case, and I don't care whether the Saudi Pro League is better or not, quite frankly, it's no skin off my backside. The fact of the matter is that if you're going to make these sort of statements, you make them from an objective point of view rather than a subjective point of view. If you weren't sitting there being trotted out at every Saudi event, being utilised as a Saudi state asset to be able to monetise their sports and utilise the things that they want to achieve, I'd take you more seriously.
Yeah, but you might say you've got a European bias.
I don't have any bias. I couldn't care less. If the best football's in Saudi, then fantastic. If the best football's in America, is fantastic. Actually, when I went to America, I became a convert of the way that the Americans do sport, and rather than having the sniffy European attitude towards relegation, I got more of the vision of the reasons why it works in those spaces, and the reasons why the seasons are more competitive, and the reasons why you see more winners in all the different American sports. But you tell me which one of these leagues, of the 7 that I've just listed, that the Saudi Pro League, in all good conscience, is better, and tell me the metrics of why, and I'll be happily convinced, because I'm not interested in having an argument with anybody.
Look, get Ronaldo on the phone, would you? After all the praise post-Juventus, Simon, when they beat them 5-2, are Manchester City, can we really say they're still back? They're back.
But the problem for me is, in conversations that I have, is I don't manage everything in the instantaneous moment. I look at things.
No, but this could be a significant moment.
No, but I don't think it is, and I don't think
turfed out the Club World Cup by Al Hilal.
But I didn't think beating Juventus.
Maybe losing the final.
Okay, well let me answer the question. I don't think beating Juventus was a significant moment. You might, and other people that were writing narratives around the fact that Man City were back, and I don't think they're not back after losing to Al Hilal. Do I think Man City have got some work to do? Yes. Did I think Man City were going to come rocking back over the horizon next season and suddenly march off for the Premier League? No, I didn't. So this idea that I have to, like everybody else does, be lazy enough to go instantaneously, he's a hero, instantaneously, he's a zero. That's not how it should work. Manchester City have got to rebuild themselves, and because we want to compartmentalize everything into instantaneous gratification, I think it's nonsense. Man City.
I think you look at it for what it is.
But it's not.
They get dumped out last night by Al Hilal. They didn't see it coming,
and that's fine. And that's a bad result. But you're not asking me that question. You're asking me if they're back. This is not a sprint. It's a marathon. They've got a 38-game season coming up in the Premier League. If they lose in the first game of the season, have they lost the league? No. So my point is that we have to take things in isolation. It's a fabulous result for the Saudis. In the same way, it was a fabulous result for the Saudi Arabians to beat Argentina in the World Cup. It's an announcement in a competition that, by the way, you and everybody else around think is a waste of time anyway. We've listened to the backdrop of people saying they can't be bothered to be there. We've tried to psychoanalyse the motivations of the manager. We had Danny Murphy sitting in here saying the other day that Atletico Madrid couldn't care less. Now we've got people saying that people should be deeply invested. Make your bleeding minds up.
You know we've got another 2 3/4 hours to do.
Yeah, I'm out of gas now.
It's Jim White and Simon Jordan, and that was a look at the Club World Cup. Manchester City exited it last night, and we did that with DAZN. A lot to get through. Stay with us.
FIFA Club World Cup Roundup on talkSPORT, presented by DAZN. Sign up now at DAZN.com to watch every game live and for free.
Good morning, everybody. It's Jim White and Simon Jordan. Anybody out there who's not enjoying hot weather at the moment, you must be bored rigid when I say, wow, it is boiling in London. Yet again, 30 degrees here. A friend of mine texted me from Glasgow this morning saying it's freezing and it's chucking it down.
Changing tomorrow, though, isn't it? It's dropping down to 23 degrees. So it's going to drop 16 degrees tomorrow.
Michael Fish, thank you so much.
And then I'm going to scoot off to Spain, where it's going to go up to 35 degrees.
Oh, good. Excellent. And we're all coming with you. So that's the part you didn't know. We're with you this morning, courtesy of Selco, is where the trade goes. I wonder where some of the Sheffield Wednesday players are going to go, because it was serious and it's getting more and more serious by the day. Sheffield Wednesday could face further disciplinary action from the EFL after failing to pay all the squad's wages for the third time in 4 months. Simon, it's a serious matter. One of the Sheffield Wednesday players messaged me this morning. Haven't been paid for 2 months now. It is a serious matter. Now, as you and I said during the break there, Simon, some of these guys aren't going to the poorhouse anytime soon.
No, they're not going to go to a food bank, but that doesn't make it right.
No.
It doesn't make it right that you don't pay people. I mean, I had some troubles at Palace, and at the back end of my time when I was running out of money and the world was collapsing around my ears,
yeah.
You know, there was a couple of times I was a couple of days late, and I didn't like it because it enables people to operate a certain way and take a certain position. And there is a balance. Like I'm reading about David Murray, and when the transfer of ownership of Rangers come along, some of the players like Naismith and Stephen Davis and a few other players decided that they weren't going to be transferred between one club and another.
Okay.
And they didn't support the club.
Yeah.
They're supporting the club to a point, but Chansiri seems to have turned this club into a chaotic mess.
Well, that's exactly what it seems
and
to
spent
be.
a lot of money to do it as well.
Yeah, the Thai owner, Defon Chansiri, I've met him. He ranted at me once on the phone. Then I met him at Wembley when Sheffield Wednesday were promoted, and he was fine with me, as you might predict. But last week, he said he was spending, quotes, every minute of every day attempting to resolve the situation around the payment of wages. As I said, it's the third time in 4 months that all Wednesday players have not been paid on time, and it's the seventh time since March 2021. So the EFL set to get heavy on this, and it could be a bunch of charges coming down the line. But is that almost too simplistic, Simon? It always seems to be
what else can they do?
The solution is hit them hard, but charge them.
But what else can they do? I mean, the alternative is do nothing. I mean, you would have... Look, I'm not suggesting that knocking people or paying people late is the ideal scenario. But if you were going to do anybody, you do the HMRC. You go to the HMRC, I'll see you in a few months' time. And the payroll that I'm paying will be the net wages to the players and get them played, so I don't have to listen to that nonsense. And I'll have my disputes in the background with commercial creditors or with the HMRC, because it's normally the HMRC that are the most difficult to deal with when you've got problems, because they're the most intransigent, whether it's the VAT guys or whether it's the PAYE guys. So I mean, if you're looking at the wages of Sheffield Wednesday, and I speak to Josh Windass every now and again, and I get on quite well with him, and he's always keeping me up to date with his views on what Sheffield Wednesday could and shouldn't be doing. And you know, you look at it and think, well, they can't have that huge a wage bill. I mean, if you've spent, I mean, Chansiri, from my understanding, I'm happy to be corrected, has spent 200-300 million quid on this football club. So with that in mind, his payroll, his net payroll to his players can't be more than £1.5 million, £2 million a month.
So why is he not paying them?
I mean, it would appear that he's either decided that is the end of the day and he's not prepared to put a single dime in there, or he's bleeding out of his eyes economically and can't find the money. Well, because he talks about the meetings that he's having. I've read the schedule that Luke sent about the meetings that he's having with various investors and various people that want
somebody didn't turn up to a Zoom meeting.
Well, they want to do it in dollars, then they want to do it in pounds. The problem when you're selling a football club and you're in distress is you get so many people that kick the tyres, and you get so many people that get in between the wall and the wallpaper and crawl out from behind it and tell you that they're representing somebody so they can get paid for it. And it's a difficult conversation to have with meaningful people, and you're trying to get people into a situation where you want to talk to me. If you're being serious with me about you want to talk to me, then I need to see some indication of good faith.
Yeah, but in good faith, talking about good faith, the Sheffield Wednesday fans have turned up in their numbers last season.
Yeah.
And they watched the team in good days and in bad days.
Yeah.
And now what are they watching at the moment? Chansiri can't pay them. The players are up in arms at not being paid. The new championship season begins in less than 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Head coach Danny Roll hasn't returned to pre-season training. He's seeking an exit from the club. Right. They're watching this famous club, as you describe them, and you're not wrong, Simon, absolutely dissolve in front of their eyes. And Chansiri is saying, well, I tried to have a Zoom meeting with a potential buyer last week. He didn't show up.
It's not dissolving.
Didn't show up.
First and foremost, it's not dissolving in front of their
Sheffield
eyes.
Wednesday fans in numbers saying to me this morning, ask Simon, why can't Chansiri just be booted out?
because he can't be, because he's the owner of the football club. You can boot him out of the directorship. It's not a compulsory purchase of order. This isn't the state trying to build a motorway and taking your house off you because they want to build a piece of land, build a road through your property. This is a football club that is owned by an individual, whose shares are owned by an individual. The Football League can sanction it to the point where he's no longer able to run it, but they can't make him sell it.
So when he runs out of money, when an owner runs out of money, is it an unfixable situation?
Pretty much, unless the football club is sustainable. And this is one of the flip side of the argument about PSR, which is sustainability. But we have also seen, I know you don't want to hear this, but these are the rigours and vigours of football. It's part of the jeopardy. You pays your money, you takes your choice. Football's got to a point where the owners are coming in, you want the investment, you want the structure, and you want the football club to be better and bolder than it was before, and then you get certain types of owners. Now, no one can legislate unless you change the whole dynamics of how football is set up, and maybe the independent regulator will achieve some of that, which is putting bonds in place so that people can fall back on a position, returning the football club to different ownership models so that the league can run it. But the league don't want to run it. The league don't want to run football clubs, and neither does the independent regulator want to run a football club.
Yeah.
So you are in a situation where, first and foremost, this is not like that absolute charlatan at Bury. This is not. Must not use examples of Bury to illustrate what's happening at other football clubs. They're different dynamics.
Who is that? Steve Dale.
He was an imbecile and a liar and a cheat. Right? Whereas he was.
Yeah.
He had no money. He didn't do the things he said he was going to do. I remember. Right? Whereas other people, at least the guy at Reading had put loads of money in. And what he was trying to do was get his money back, and realising that it was very difficult to do. And trying to.
What's the way out here?
Well, someone's going to come and buy it, aren't they? And what someone's going to come and buy it, but it's about the reality. There's blood in the water. No one is going to give chance. My understanding of this and my understanding of this is helicopter, but it's got some detail attached to it, and you can go backwards and work why I may be this interest in Sheffield Wednesday. But they're looking like they're £200 million in debt. Now that debt can only be to one person, to Chansiri.
Right.
And no one's going to buy Sheffield Wednesday for anything more than 60, 70 million quid. Right? So he's going to have to get his head in the game and around the game and across the game, that he's going to have to take a pill. You see, and he's prepared to take a pill. But what he doesn't want to do, with all due respect, metaphorically, please excuse the terminology, he doesn't want to take it up the backside, because he accepts the fact that if you get some success, I'll take a haircut, a massive haircut. I'll accept that I can't get anywhere near what I've invested. But if you get some bloody success, after getting it off me for 2 and 6, then you can pay me some additional money. And what he's been offered, and what he's saying here, and I'm not saying he's right or wrong, what he's been saying is that you're going to give me 2 and 6 for the club on the way in, and then when you get promoted somewhere further down the line, whenever that day is, you're going to give me nothing.
Well, Chansiri's latest quote, I repeat that I'm willing to sell, but the deal must be correct on all fronts. It's not just about the price.
Well, it is about the price. Yes, what he's doing is basically saying that's not his gift, right? Because the Football League will determine that.
Right.
So if someone comes through the door and the Football League don't like him, they're not sending the clubs. So pack it in with that side of things, because ultimately you're going to take. If I walk through the door and you don't particularly like me, but I'm prepared to pay 300 million quid, you ain't going to be worried about whether I'm the right person for the football club going forward. You're going to be out the door. So stop that silly nonsense. That's window dressing. What he's trying to achieve is the perfect utopian world of getting out with some of his money back, getting out with some upside in the opportunity if Sheffield Wednesday ever go on to be successful.
Yeah.
And perhaps if we give him the latitude that he wants us to give him, making sure that the right person comes through the door, then the Sheffield Wednesday chorus will be going, well, who says you can be the judge of that? You clearly aren't the right person. Then another person would say, well, he spent 300 million quid and he's run out of cash and he's got it wrong and he's made mistakes and he fell out with Darren Moore and he's alienated the fans, he's put the prices up and he's got lots of things wrong. But you can't argue with how much, and it will be forgotten, how much money he spent.
We'll keep an eye on it. We'll try and get a hold of Chansiri as well, because this doesn't get solved by close of play today. That is for sure. There's nervousness at Sheffield Wednesday. Of course there is. A degree of concern, I would say, amongst Crystal Palace fans for other reasons completely. We'll get to that. 10:30.
Just when you thought nothing could get more shocking than Chelsea's 2-hour weather delay at the Club World Cup, well, this happens. Manchester City are out of the tournament and Pep has lost the spring in his step.
It's sadness because I felt that we were happy here. We were in the training sessions, have been really, really good, all of them. But the level in these competitions, World Cup, and I said, yeah, the only regret a little bit, I have to review the game a little bit, is that we allowed them to run a little bit more than expected.
A familiar problem was their downfall, according to Jamie Jackson. Leaky defence cost them yet again.
They can be got at too easy, and this was the problem last season, essentially. Yes, they just too often it's become the way to beat them.
Well, a loss is a loss, but we've also been warned the consequences of this will affect City in the Premier League next season.
You know, the players are going to be a little bit more fatigued come November, December time because they haven't had this break. You haven't been able to maybe use that 150 million to buy new players.
And Jack Draper leads the British Challenge on day 2 of Wimbledon after a record-breaking start for the home players. He's admitted he's feeling pretty relaxed ahead of it all too.
You guys have asked me a lot about the pressure and all this sort of stuff, but I'm not thinking about that at all. I'm thinking about how I can play my tennis out there.
All your latest is at talkSPORT.com.
Bonjour everybody, Jim White, Simon Jordan. The reason I'm saying that is we're dipping into the world of French football in a second, partly to do with this man John Textor, of course. Just gone 10:30 this Tuesday morning. Former owner and chairman of Rangers, David Murray, joining us at the top of the hour at 11 o'clock, so I better get a bend on. How long are Crystal Palace going to be left in UEFA limbo land? I'll need to explain this to you, so I will. As the calendar ticks into July, we remain none the wiser this morning as to whether or not Crystal Palace will be playing Europa League football next season. That's after they won the FA Cup, of course. The situation came to light last month due to John Textor's involvement in both Palace and Lyon, conflicting with UEFA's multi-club ownership rules. In a bid to satisfy the situation, Textor has sold his Palace shares to the New York Jets owner Woody Johnson. Whilst yesterday morning he announced that he'd be stepping down as a president and a board member of Olympique Lyon. But both these moves have come after UEFA's March 1 deadline regarding multi-club rules. And then to further complicate the issue, Lyon last week were relegated from League One due to financial issues. UEFA confirmed yesterday they were postponing their decision on whether or not Palace can play in the Europa League next season until the outcome of of Lyon's appeal over their relegation to the French second division is reached. So we need to know that before we know where Lyon are going to be playing next season, either Ligue 1 or Ligue 2, and that impacts Palace as to whether or not they can play in the Europa League next season. Julien Laurent, our French expert here at talkSPORT, and he's that and many other things, has been watching the situation very closely. Julien, good morning.
Hello, boys.
Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us. Julien, the outcome of the Lyon appeal, we should know, I think, by the end of the week, but it's crucial to everything here, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, because UEFA have already told Lyon that if they stay in Ligue 1, then they can play in the Europa League, but they will have to pay a 50 million euro fine to UEFA for all the financial issues that they have, which is the reason why right now they will be in Ligue 2 next season, as you just explained, Jim. And in case they were confirmed to be going down into the second division, then in France, UEFA have already said that they would have to review their potential participation to the Europa League, which would then free Palace completely. Although I think that John Textor stepping down from Lyon as a board member and as a president, like you said, while also selling his share in Crystal Palace, I think it's likely that Crystal Palace and Lyon, if Lyon stay up in Ligue 1, will both be allowed to play in the Europa League. But you're right. For now, we still don't know. It's still uncertain.
I mean, it's still in the balance, though,
But
Simon.
that's always been my point. And so now we're saying something different.
What's that?
That ultimately there will be an outcome that will be, even if I've heard Julian right, even if Olympic Lyon are able to preserve their position in Ligue 1, which Textor is adamant that they can. Textor is adamant that the reaction was, and if I'm paraphrasing what John has said, was that there was an expectation that when he sold his shares in Crystal Palace, that all of the money from the Crystal Palace shares sale was going to go into Lyon.
Well, if that's the case, why UEFA postponing the decision?
And when they were told that it wasn't, that's the reaction that they've got. Now, Lyon are now presenting, from what I understand, a model of their finances to illustrate to the French authorities, I think it's DCNG, that they have the wherewithal to meet all their obligations and to shut down what they believe is a spurious set of observations from a volunteer panel of people sitting in there making independent assessments of what they can and can't do. That's the Textor version of events. Now, what we're talking about is, are both clubs going to be bought out of Europa? Julian has just said, unlikely. So the issue for Crystal Palace and the issue for Olympic Lyon is the fact that I think UEFA are trying to avoid having to make a decision, because if the DNCG, and if I think that's right that there's a terminology, stays with their situation and relegates them to Ligue 2, they'll have their fight with the DNCG, but UEFA will be out of it, because UEFA will say, actually, by dropping into Ligue 2, you can't compete in the Europa Cup. So Palace, we don't have to make a decision for you because that situation has been resolved.
I mean, how is Textor being viewed in France, Julian? I mean, is he being looked upon as the devil incarnate, as some, I think, are doing?
Yeah, I mean, certainly amongst Lyon fans, there was a big protest on Saturday. The fact that he decided himself to step down for the role that he had at the club, board member, president, and focus just on Botafogo and taking really like a step back on Lyon, I think says it all. Really,
it doesn't, Julian, because what's his shareholding? What's Eagle Holdings shareholding in Lyon?
They own the club.
Well, they are then. So until he sells his shares, it doesn't make any difference. It's just for optics. And I was listening to you guys the other day, and Eric.
But he owes a lot of money to Ares, which is the investment fund that he borrowed 425 million euros to buy the club.
Absolutely.
That he will have to be paid before February 2028 with an interest rate of between 11% and 16%. That's a lot of money. That's
his problem, isn't it? But that's
that means
you're not
Ares
an economist. You're not an economist, so you don't know whether he can service that debt or not. But the point is,
true, but the power is very much in Ares. And Ares said to John Textor, "You've messed up here. You need to step down." And he stepped down.
Oh, of course he has. But the reality of it is, he may well have stepped down in the same way that you can put shares in a blind trust. But the reality of it is that you still own those shares and you still own the football club to some extent until either the debt's been converted into equity. And the interesting thing I was observing last week and listening to you guys talk about was the state of their finances and how much debt they were in. And I was curious to know, when he bought it in 2022, Textor, how much debt Lyon was in then. Because it's one thing saying that debt is now at 425 million euros or whatever the debt is, right? And debt is only a problem if you can't afford to pay it. In the same way the debt of Man United is perceived to be a problem by some extent and not by another because they can afford to pay it. But if they were 200 or 300 million pounds in debt already when he bought the football club, then the level of debt hasn't accelerated that much. But if they were zero in debt, then maybe there's an argument here. It's about getting the full picture rather than some of the hysteria that comes out of people's mouths, including yours, Julian.
No, there was no hysteria at all. But
well, it was. I listened to you last week.
Yeah, absolutely. I listened to you as well, and there was no hysteria at all. They are in debt now more than when he bought the club. And after him selling the women's team to Michel Kang, who by the way is in charge now, selling the sports hall where Lasvel, the basketball team, plays, that belonged to the club before, that he sold as well. So he sold a lot of assets that belonged to Lyon when he bought it, and yet there's still 200 million euros in debt. So you have to explain to me how this worked out. And by the way,
debt is debt, and we live in a world of debt. In the same way that Elon Musk bought Twitter and loaded it with loads of debt, debt is only a problem if you can't afford to pay it. Is he meeting his obligations? Does he pay his players? Does he meet the obligation? Put aside the commercial creditors and the arguments that you have about payment terms of commercial creditors. Does he meet his football obligations? And if he doesn't, then I understand some of the argument.
I mean, he still owes money to Burnley for the Vitinho transfer. He owes money to Atlanta United for the Thiago Almada transfer.
But is he in default?
He owes money to a lot of people.
Is he in default of these agreements then?
Of course. And he's been sanctioned already by FIFA because he hasn't paid the transfer fees. So he owes money to a lot of people. This is what I mean. I know you're close to him and you.
I'm not close to him. I just like to provide an objective opinion rather than an unbalanced one that's weighted in one favour. I'm not close to him.
I agree,
I can buy both
then
sides of the equation.
The facts are that he owns money to some clubs for transfer that he's made in the past that still now haven't been paid off, which you obviously, as you know, not allowed to do. The fact that
you just renegotiate them, don't you?
To the DNCG,
Clubs all the time, Julian, in the real world, not in the idealistic world, in the real world, football clubs renegotiate their payment terms all the time and they pay a premium for it. If he's not renegotiated and he's being sanctioned and the football clubs that he's renegotiating with, then okay, I accept that some of those problems are far from ideal.
Yeah, no, but for example, just a little detail that I think tells you a lot about the situation, whether it's John's full fault or not. But in his plan to the NCG to avoid the relegation for Lyon, he said Botafogo, who are also owned, is going to sell some players, and that money for the transfers to Igor Jesus to Nottingham Forest or Jair to Nottingham Forest from Botafogo, that money is going to go to Lyon. That money belongs to Botafogo, not to Lyon. It's not because you own the two clubs that you can just transfer money from one club's bank account to the other, just like that. And the DNCG said, I'm sorry, John, you can't do that. You can't just transfer the money from transfers from Botafogo to another club to Lyon because Lyon need money.
Well, you can do precisely what you want if you own the football clubs. What you've got to do is make the appropriate accountancy entries, and you've got to have a legitimate reason for doing it. So if you want to do it, you can do as you please.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. And that's what I think, to be fair, I think they will be okay. I think he will present another plan. Now that he stepped down, Michelle Kang is in charge. She's a wonderful woman that is heavily involved in women's football, both in France and in the US. She's a very good businesswoman, and she will have a good plan with Ares, who now very much are in charge, like a lot of the hedge funds that lend money to people who want to buy football clubs. And in the end, as we saw for Inter Milan or AC Milan or Toulouse, clubs like that, they're very much in charge. And I believe the plan that they will present in appeal should be okay. So good, they will be safe. But I promise you, Si, it doesn't excuse for all the mess really that's been created.
I agree.
Whether he's
I agree.
on his own or not.
There's a common denominator. There's a common denominator, and I agree that. Absolutely.
And Texter's the common denominator.
And that's the point I'm agreeing with.
I mean, there's Julian, there's nervousness. Of course there is amongst Lyon fans. That's why they were protesting, who think they might be looking at Ligue 2 football next season. And there's nervousness amongst Palace fans who in good faith go to Wembley, watch their team win the FA Cup, and they still don't know if they're going to be playing in the Europa League next season. And Texter's a common denominator.
And that's fine. But what I'm trying to do, and what Julian is doing in this conversation, is rounding the argument, right? And last week what we heard was, it's absolute meltdown. Lyon are going to be relegated. Palace aren't going to play in the Europa League. It's all meltdown. And I said, well, hang on a second. I don't think that's the case. Now, here we are, 5 days later, with Julian saying, I think Lyon are going to be able to play in Ligue 1. That's going to be resolved. Palace are going to play in the Europa League. And we've got a slightly different picture. So what I'm trying to do is dial down the hysteria and get to the reality of what the real world is rather than what the media world thinks it is.
I don't think there's hysteria.
There is.
We're in July.
Well, so what?
We still don't know.
So what?
No, but if you're a fan, Simon, you're not in the know, and we are trying to tell the fans.
And that's fine.
These are the mechanics of this situation at the moment.
Tell them the full picture.
And this is why you should be concerned.
And tell them, so ultimately...
So now everybody's got the full picture, but it's still a concerning one.
By having conversations like this and being availed of the facts rather than some of the media's interpretation of what the facts are, because most of the time the media have never been in these situations, and they're looking at what they think they know rather than the experience of having been there. And I've been in situations like this. I'm of the belief, and have been of the belief for some time, that the outcome will be that Lyon will be fine. Texter will probably get damaged as a result of it. Eagle Holdings will probably get damaged as a result of it. The IPO in the New York Stock Exchange will probably get damaged as a result of it.
Just as a matter of interest, why did UEFA confirm that they're postponing their decision as to whether or not Palace can play in the Europa League next season until the outcome of Lyon's appeal? Why is it taking this time?
But why am I repeating myself? I said this yesterday. I would suggest that ultimately UEFA are seeing if the French authorities take care of the situation for them. If they are insistent that Lyon are relegated to Ligue 2 and they stand that up themselves, then UEFA possibly don't have a decision to make. And that's the point I'm making.
Julian, finally, we seem to have something of a timeline on this. We'll know an awful lot more probably this time next week. But it is a bit of an unsavoury mess. Of that there is no doubt. It should be resolved. But in your eyes and other people's eyes, was the whole damn thing avoidable?
Yeah, it's an absolute mess that Lyon should have never been in, really, never been in that position. And you're right, they've lodged their appeal now, so they will meet the appeal committee, I suspect, very soon. But we are in July. You know, the preseason has started already. The players have gathered together, and they don't know if they will play in Ligue 1, in Ligue 2, in the Europa League. No, same for Crystal Palace. Same for the fans, by the way, who would want to go and watch those games. They can't. It's just an absolute mess. And yeah, I think he's been available, and I think John Textor himself has admitted that he made mistakes. That he didn't really fully understood how the French system maybe was working compared to what he knew before from the US, Brazil, you know, whatever he wanted. And that's fine. I would rather him apologizing and raising his hand and saying, I made mistakes here and that's why I'm stepping down. But still, this could have all been
But it's about ownership models, Julian. If the Qataris turned off the cash to PSG now and decided they didn't want to own it anymore, PSG would collapse.
I think they've got strong revenues enough not to collapse.
But if the Qataris turned off their money and decided that they didn't want to be involved in the football club anymore, PSG would have economic challenges.
Yeah. We'll call time out in the meantime, Julian. We'll return to it when we know more. Of that, there is no doubt. Julian, thank you so much. We'll follow it with interest because now we should know in a matter of days whether or not Lyon's appeal over their relegation to the French second division has been successful. Thereafter, we'll know what's in line for Crystal Palace, and hopefully it's Europa League football.
talkSPORT with Keep Britain Tidy. Cigarette butts are rubbish. Bin your butts.
Yeah, it's time for this feature, Keep Britain Tidy, and we've come up with a subject matter. Do we bin it, or do we keep it away from the bin? The Americanization of our coverage for next season, Simon.
It's a tenuous link.
Is it the best way forward for broadcasters to get more bang for their buck? Premier League TV coverage said to be featuring touchline interviews in future with substituted players as early as next season. Players who've been subbed. Hi, so-and-so, you've just come off in the 63rd minute. What happened? Are we interested in that? Other innovations include camera operators being allowed to enter the field of play to capture close-up footage of goal celebrations, and cameras will be granted access to the changing rooms, something Sir Alex would never have had. Are we into that, or do we not want that?
I mean, look, first of all, I'm not going to look at it from irrespective of where I'm sitting today. I'm not going to look at it through the perspective of a broadcaster. I couldn't care less if the broadcaster gets more bang for their buck, unless it's going to give more money to the sport, because the sport will get more benefits from that.
They're kind of in charge, though, aren't they?
Well, they are and they aren't. It's a Faustian pact. I mean, Sky has become a major... When Sky launched its proposition in 1992 and pitched a woo to David Dean and Rick Parry, it was the runt of the litter. He had 250,000 subscribers, and Rupert and his sons have built a business off the back of the broadcasting opportunities in this country that football has given them. So it's worked very well for both parties.
Yeah.
Sky haven't given money to charity. They've given it because it's built up millions of subscribers and has become a very lucrative business for them.
But the Football League at the time was there to be improved.
But the Football League...
It was a bit of a runt of the litter as well.
The football, of course it was, but they could have gone with ITV, and they went with Sky. And Sky, on the back of that, Sky got the opportunity. So, and the Football League is not part of this conversation.
But it's growing with Sky.
And Sky, my point is, it's a pact that's worked well for both.
Sure.
So don't ask what we can do for the broadcast. Ask what the broadcaster can do for the sport.
Right.
So let's ask the question: what can the broadcaster do for the sport?
So we're having this.
So am I having
interviews with substitutes?
If we call it Americanization of sport, first of all, the fluidity of our sports. I don't see cameras going onto the basketball court and wanting to get close-ups of a long-range shot, whatever the terminology is. I don't see that sort of dynamic.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether they film the players coming off when they're substituting in the basketball game. They can do it in American football because that game is fraught with breaks and challenges and stops and starts.
Yeah.
Ours is a more fluid game. Now, we can argue then and say, well, VAR's put pay to that. Do I think that we need to have more content delivery for the sport itself? No, I don't. Do I think that the broadcasters need more content delivery so they can get more advertising to feed their poor little underpaid advertising resources to be able to feed the animal going forward? Possibly.
Yeah.
Do I think that the Premier League should run its own game and build its own platform and have its own Netflix of football and do its own thing? I've always felt that. In fact, I was the first person to say it 7-8 years ago.
Right.
So with all that in mind, if football feels in order... I mean, it's given up 218 of its games to Sky this year. This idea that Richard Masters tells you and I, we've got a better deal. Well, you gave up 40% more of your collateral. You didn't get a better deal. You got the same deal and gave up 40% more of the games.
I think you're putting this one in the bin, are you?
I'm putting it in the bin.
Interviews with substitutes.
I mean, come on. Come on.
Access to changing rooms.
Well, first and foremost, what are you going to achieve?
Yeah.
How's that going to create harmony?
Yeah.
And how's it going to create organisation and structure? It's going to be great if the broadcaster can get some substitute coming off throwing a shirt on the floor and telling him what he thinks of a manager.
There you go.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. That will help the sport no end. But who cares about that, eh?
Right, we're bidding it.
Long as we've got the broadcasting opportunity.
And that was all thanks to Keep Britain Tidy. It's 11 o'clock.
Get in the bin! On talkSPORT with Keep Britain Tidy. Cigarette butts are rubbish. Bin your butts.
Just when you thought nothing could get more shocking than Chelsea's 2-hour weather delay at the Club World Cup, well, this happens. Manchester City are out of the tournament and Pep has lost the spring in his step.
It's sadness because I felt that we were happy here. We were in the training sessions, have been really, really good, all of them. But the level in these competitions, World Cup, and I said, yeah, the only regret a little bit, I have to review the game a little bit, is that we allowed them to run a little bit more than expected.
A familiar problem was their downfall, according to Jamie Jackson. Leaky defence cost them yet again.
They can be got at too easy, and this was the problem last season, essentially. Yes. They just too often, as I say, very rare before that. I can remember one game, maybe Ivan Toney, that's how far back it was for Brentford. Before the World Cup, he scored a couple of goals and he got turned over this way. But it's so rare, or it was so rare. Now it's become the way to beat them.
Well, a loss is a loss, but we've also been warned the consequences of this will affect City in the Premier League next season.
We've now been away for a month, 5 weeks, whatever it may be. Now you've got the problem of what does that knock-on effect have for next season? The players are going to be a little bit more fatigued come November, December time because they haven't had this break. You haven't been able to maybe use that 150 million to buy new players because you haven't got it. Simple as that. So your squad isn't as big as maybe you hoped.
Elsewhere, Brentford's new boss, Keith Andrews, has had his first press conference and he's spoken about how he's been eyeing up a role of this kind for a long time.
2 or 3 years ago, I knew I was ready to be a head coach. Would I have foreseen it being this role at this level? Probably not, realistically. Look, the path I've taken has been very deliberate to get to this stage.
And Jack Draper leads the British Challenge on day 2 of Wimbledon after a record-breaking start for the home players. He's admitted he's feeling pretty relaxed ahead of it all too.
You guys have asked me a lot about the pressure and all this sort of stuff, but I'm not thinking about that at all. I'm thinking about how I can play my tennis out there.
All your latest is at talkSPORT.com.
Good morning, everybody. Tuesday morning. Thanks for all the texts, the tweets, the messages coming in. As always, your participation in our show is absolutely all important to us, and I'm sure we're going to get a reaction to this as well. Just gone at 11 o'clock this Tuesday morning. Sir David Murray made his name in the steel industry. By the age of 23, he formed the company Murray International Metals Limited. In 1988, he moved into football, buying Rangers for £6 million. His 2 decades of ownership is indexed to both unprecedented success with 15 league titles, followed by near disaster after an infamous sale of the club in 2011 to the businessman Craig White that ended with the club being liquidated. Sir David Murray has written a book, Metal, Tragedy, Courage and Titles. And I am delighted to say, Simon, Sir David joins us live in the show. Sir David, good morning to you.
Morning, Jim. Morning. Good morning.
Good morning to you. It's great to see you. I haven't spoken to you in a considerable time, and great to see you looking so well. Let's get into this. Regarding the book and telling your own story, why now?
I've done a little more than just football in my life. I'd run a business, had an interesting life, and I just felt sometimes you need to clear up loose ends. People have said things, done things, and I just thought it'd be a good thing to do.
I mean, forming your own company at 23 in the steel industry, in the world of business, were you always going to be your own boss, Sir David?
People like me are unemployable. You know, you want to work for yourself. I don't want to work for anybody else. I want to make my own decisions, good ones and bad ones. And I've made some bad ones, I realise, but show me a man that's never made a bad one, you've just met a liar.
I think sitting beside me, I've got a man who speaks your own language. Am I right, Simon?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. Very much so. Very much so. I think he's absolutely right. I mean, writing a book is an interesting thing, David, isn't it? Did you find it cathartic?
Yeah, I did actually. Funnily enough, being very honest, I met John Caldwell recently, who's done a book.
Sorry about that. I know John very well.
In life, you know, and he asked me if I'd remembered it. And you know the funny thing, I'd never thought about my accident really.
Right.
The only thing this book has brought, it made me think a bit more about my father, the influence he had, who unfortunately died at the age of 50. But no, I found it interesting. It's been good for my family. I mean, it's not been boring.
Well, you just mentioned it, David. In your early 20s, you faced a life-changing event, a car crash, and you lost both of your legs, becoming a double amputee. What did that do to the mindset of a young David Murray?
Well, it was an interesting 4 or 5 months. My father passed away in the September. My youngest son, Keith, was born in the November, and I had my accident in March. Now, if that doesn't focus the mind, nothing will. So, and at that age, I could only go one way. You couldn't lie down to it. I had a young wife. She must have thought where we were going as a family. I'd already been in business a year, so I had a business. And you just had to get on with it, really, to be honest. I'm not just full of bravado today, but that was it. It was a major reflective moment in my life, and there was only one way I could go, and I couldn't afford to fail.
I think you got a letter around that time, someone who's saying he admired your courage, and that was Douglas Bader. Am I right?
Yeah, it was amazing, because an aunt of mine had written to him. The younger generation won't know who Douglas Bader is, but there's a great film that was Kenneth More, Reach for the Sky, which was a famous one. And he gave me inspiration. I met him once at Turnberry Hotel. I still got the letter to this day. And if that's not going to inspire you, there's not much is not going to, is it?
So, resiliently, you carried on with life and were very successful in business, and still are. I'll get to that, David. So how did Rangers come on your radar?
Well, I became friendly socially with Graham Souness, who you both know very well. And I'd actually tried to buy Ayr United because my grandfather was a director. It was the team I went and used to watch as a boy. And I'd agreed a deal in principle to put money into the club. And the existing manager, Ali McLeod, said if I came in, he was going to resign. Pathetic when you look back. And they decided not to accept my offer. And about a month later, Graham said to me, I think the Lawrence Group would sell Rangers because they basically are spending a lot of money and need the money. And so therefore, I decided to meet Lawrence Marlborough, who's a majority shareholder. And it's quite remarkable when I look back at it. I went to Ibrox one night to a game and met him. And in one meeting, we handshook the deal. And as I was coming out of the building just after half-time, because nobody knew who the hell I was then, I was all going out my sticks, and this punter said, did Big Teddy Butcher get you? You know, as if I'd been tackled or something like that. And the deal was completed in 2 days. And then Lawrence Marlborough said, tell me a little about you. I said, well, you should know. I said, we actually went to the same school together. You're a year older than me. I was in a school photo with him. What a coincidence. So that was it.
How prepared were you for the world of football ownership? Simon has been in that world. You went into it. Were you ready for it?
Probably not. I didn't realise what I was taking. I'd been involved in basketball and hockey and volleyball because after my accident, you know, I'd played sport in some shape or form from probably the age of 8 to 24, whether it be rugby, cricket or football, as you did in those days. We were all outside. And no, I wasn't. The one that always hit me was I was into the job about a week. And here I am, 37, an elder statesman. I come up and shake my hand and say, delighted to meet you, Chairman. I went, wait a minute, this is just a different aspect. But that was it. I wasn't totally ready for it, no.
I mean, David, why? I mean, I bought Palace when I was 30, 31. So we're in the same sort of zip code, aren't we, in terms of ages in our 30s. I mean, I know why I bought it. I came out of a business. I made 100 million quid. I thought I could do something in an industry that I quite admired, liked and grew up loving sports. And my father had played for the team. Why did you want to buy a football club? Ayr, because you had some relationship, but then going on to Rangers. Why was it a motivation for you?
Well, when I grew up, I'd actually been to Rangers games. It's quite strange. You know, I supported A United as a boy, but my father took me to big European nights at Ibrox. That's just the way it was, you know, in life. And I've become very friendly with Graham, and he said, led me into it. He's to blame. And he said there's a good opportunity, and I thought it was a good opportunity, and it was a good opportunity, and we decided to go ahead. He was in it with me. He had bought some shares at the same time, and it's strangely enough, we become that close a year and a bit before I bought the club. When he came to sign Terry Butcher after the World Cup in '86, Graham asked me to come along with him to help him sign for Rangers, and I'm not even involved with bloody Rangers, but you know, I got a smell for it, a taste for it, and I decided to go ahead.
We sure did. And you went headlong into it. You win back the league, won 9 successive league titles, an eventful period. At the start, the signing of former Celtic player Mo Johnston, the first high-profile Catholic to play for the club since the Second World War. What was that about for you, David? Were you desperate to stick one in Celtic?
No, I think Graham... No, I think I remember it was an Aberdeen game, last game of the season. Graham came to me and said that Bill McMurdo had come to him and said Maurice Johnson hadn't actually signed for Celtic.
That was Mo's agent.
Is it Bill McMurdo's agent? And I said, well, you better let's think about this. This is a big move. So I called a board meeting, and some of them weren't too happy. I said, look, we have to change. This is all wrong. We need to go with the times. And also, he was the best striker that Scotland had at the time. And for him and McCoist to play together, they were Scotland's striker. So to me, it was the right thing for the old historical reasons, and it was the right football thing to do.
You get death threats. So did Graham, didn't you?
Oh, I had a moment. No, yeah, we did. Graham got 5 more than me. When we came out of the stadium, there were burning strips. But anyway, that was fine.
I mean, the sectarian issue in Scottish football, you touch on it in the book, David. Is it too deep-rooted to get out of the game north of the border? Or are the authorities simply not strong enough on this issue up there?
I don't want to get political here. It's a bit like the drugs problem in Scotland. People avoid it and don't attack it and don't attend to it. I mean, in Scotland, we've got the highest drug rate in Europe. It's disgusting. I mean, 30 people a week are dying of drugs. And the bigotry thing's the same. They won't address it. They won't take it chin on. And one of the reasons I lost a few Rangers supporters when I went and asked them to stop singing the Billy Boys, and a few of them turned against me. We need to move on. You know, we're stuck in a time warp at times.
When you say they, David, I mean, I went up there and I saw some of it, and I saw what I felt was small-mindedness between the Celtic board and the Rangers board. And you've seen in recent times, you've seen the clubs not wanting to have fans inside the stadium. When you say they won't address it, who do you mean they?
The government, the Scottish Parliament. It's like a hot potato. They don't address it. I found it amazing.
But a health crisis, yeah, but in the football world, that's not their responsibility, is it, David?
Well, it is when it's on the streets. It's in the stadium. Yeah, I think so.
Right.
So the authorities there, and certainly the government, could do more, David, and should do more.
The clubs could do more, and the SFA could do more. But it's a hot potato. Nobody wants to address it.
David, in the time you had Souness, eventually Graham decides, I'm going to Liverpool. Did you attempt to convince him to stay, or was there no chance in keeping him?
This was the second time. It happened previously. One day he said he'd been approached to go to Liverpool. And I said, as far as I'm concerned, you can't leave me now. And as we're in the middle of the season, I said, the answer is no, it's non-negotiable. And then he came back again, he said, I've accepted the job. And I said, well, you better go now, because do I take the risk of us going to the end of the season and losing the league, and it's all my fault, or we go to the end of the season, you win it, and don't let him go? So Graham left right away.
The Walter Smith era began. You speak so warmly about Walter in the book. I was privileged, as you know, to get to know Walter very, very well, often on the field. But how would you sum up his contribution, the late Walter Smith?
Enormous. I was the chairman, owner, whatever you want to call it, for 1,250 games. And that's quite a lot of games. And Walter was more than half of those. And it puts you into, I mean, that's a lot of games. And we never fell out, other than once, when times were a bit hard. He said, the bank are controlling the club, chairman. I says, Walter, they're controlling every bloody club. But other than that, we never had a crossword. We were worked together, we were a unit. And I was trying to explain recently, we won some big games with lesser players. When you look at when we got to the Europa Cup, beating Fiorentina, and nothing cuts it better than players from Fiorentina missing penalties, and that Genova free from Dundee puts it in the back of the net, and we're off to Manchester. What Walter created was a bond, a unity. On paper, we shouldn't have beaten Werder Bremen or Sporting Lisbon, but Walter gave it tremendous bonding of a team, and I'm sure all the players will tell you that.
Simon and I are delighted you've joined us this morning. We'll take a brief break, David. Of course, in 2008, the unthinkable happened. There was a global economic crisis, and that led to the bank collapsing. And we'll get into what happened thereafter after this. Stay with us. Tom is one of many Rangers fans getting in touch, many neutral fans getting in touch as well this morning, loving what I'm hearing with Sir David Murray. Sir David Murray, of course, former owner and chairman of Rangers, has joined Simon and myself live in the show this morning ahead of the release of his book, Metal, Tragedy, Courage and Titles. And Sir David, I'm delighted at the reaction this is getting. Delighted too that you have joined us. My fellow co-host, Mr. Jordan, wants to throw something at you.
Yeah, I was just listening to you picking up on the conversation about Souness, and I'm very fond of Graham. I know you are, and I talked to him in 2006 about coming to Palace. But he gets you into Rangers, and then, like most football managers, he leaves when it suits him best. What was your reaction to that? Because that's what people are going to want to hear about. When I wrote my book, which became a bestseller, it was all about my relationships in football, and I was very blunt and down the barrel about what I thought about people and what I thought about myself. What was your reaction to Souness leaving? I mean, I know you said, OK, you got to go now, but on a personal level.
I was disappointed from a friendship point of view, but I understood. You know, he was getting a hard shift up at Rangers. The press, he was a marked man.
Oh dear.
Left, centre, and sometimes he deserved it, but we were getting it. But you know, you're disappointed. But if you take the four managers, main managers I had, I'm still friends with them today. We were in the trenches together. You have a bond. And if you look at my book, there's a picture of my son's wedding. Which football club in the world that four managers over 20 years would come with their wives to a wedding and get pictured together? We were close, and I'm still close. You know, a very interesting thing fans don't know. If you take Alec McLeish, those Dick Advocaat, Walter and Souness, they all became managers at lots of clubs. But the one club they managed the most games, every one of them was at Rangers. That must tell you something.
Yeah.
We had a bond. We never let each other down. We kept things tight. I mean, clubs are changing the managers 4 times a bloody year now. And each time there's a change, when Walter was going, I said, Walter, time to go, and brought Dick Advocaat. I wouldn't go behind Walter's back. I wouldn't go behind Dick Advocaat's back. I wouldn't go behind that McKee's back. That's why we remain friends to this day. And I think, you know, you look at clubs' chairmen keep firing people. They need to look at themselves because they're the ones making the bloody mistake every
That's
time.
right. David, you enjoyed huge amount of success, and I witnessed it at close hand. But it wasn't without controversy. As time went on, club debt increased, TV revenues slowed, players' salaries were on the rise.
Yes.
Your time was dogged with allegations of cheating when the club used employee benefit trusts, EBTs, giving 47 million in tax-free loans to players and staff between 2001 2010. That was something, Simon, I think you opted not to do, yet David, you did do it.
Yeah, well, what's quite interesting, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, that Rangers were a target. There's no doubt HMRC decided the high-profile target was going to be Rangers. So they hit them with a bill on those payments, 24 million, then a fine of 10 million, and it got to 75 million. It basically paralysed the club moving on. Now, what they were said, we were running an illegal tax scam. That's what they basically said. So when I came to try and sell the club, it did not help it. But what is very interesting, several years later, when it was all sorted out, they denied it was an illegal tax scheme and reduced it from 75 million to 33 million. If they'd been honest to do that at the front thing, the club wouldn't have moved on.
But why would HMRC single out Rangers, David?
Profile. It's better than an engineering business in Stoke or, you know, some lawyers in London that can all disappear. Rangers was a high-profile case, and that was it.
Why did you opt out of it, Simon?
Listen, I'm all for tax planning and looking at the effectivity of what you do and don't do. I felt it was more trouble than it was worth. I looked at it in 2004, David, when we got promoted to the Premier League, about structuring, and I thought, I can save 4 or 5 million a year, but I'm going to get it in the arse somewhere along the line. And I thought, I'm not going to do that. I thought it was too much trouble for me. And I knew what HMRC were like. I knew how difficult they could be. There was no illegitimacy about the scheme. It was just, I thought this is going to be challenged. HMRC are having a go at football with a preferred creditors position. I thought it's not worth the while.
Well, I'd agree with you, but for 4 years, our auditors signed off the accounts. So, I mean, that's why you have auditors.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Today, the auditors would be charged now as part of these schemes.
Indeed.
It's up quite considerably.
Yeah.
But we were open at that time. And the problem you mentioned, Jim, cash running short. Just to go back a bit, please. When we bought Rangers, Rangers went in the early days, it was a level playing field with TV money. And I did a bit of research before, obviously I knew you were going to ask me today. Rangers Football Club, the Scottish football, have just signed a great 5-year deal for £150 million for TV. Leeds have just been promoted, will nearly get £150 million.
For one club, yeah.
It's not a level playing field. So clever I may think I was or I'm not, that we were getting disadvantaged every year until we got to 2008 when there was a global problem. The property market collapsed, the steel market collapsed, HMRC were on their tail, and worst of all, the Bank of Scotland went bust. So without repeating myself, doesn't matter how clever I was, it was really stacked up against us.
David, years ago, you met with Rick Parry, who was chief executive of Liverpool, David Dean of Arsenal, Dermot Desmond of Celtic, who's still there. You talked about getting Rangers and Celtic into the Premier League here in England. It didn't happen. Will it ever happen? I don't think you think it will.
I don't think it will happen because I don't think the Premiership needs Rangers and Celtic. And also, turkeys don't vote for Christmas. Because when I met, I've always been a close friend with David Dean and still am to this day. And the bigger clubs weren't too against it. But then the clubs that are on the peripheral up and down for the divisions, they're not going to vote for it. So it became a no-go.
I like the idea, by the way. In 2008, I think it was mooted. It started to get mooted very loudly in around about 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
And I was for it. What I was for was the idea that Celtic and Rangers coming down, but I felt that they should come into the Championship and ultimately pay a bounty for doing it, and that ultimately there should be a benefit to the clubs that they were coming in and replacing to make it more palatable. And I thought they would have a huge value to Celtic and Rangers because it would increase their values exponentially. So I was kind of in favour of it, David.
Well, it didn't happen because I said the reason for it, but I can understand if you're a club. And just moving on to today, Jim, because today is important what happened to the club. You want to talk about Craig White. If you notice, even in Scotland today, there are very few Scottish owners left. But in England, there's very few English owners. Brighton, maybe. But now you've got
West Ham.
Influence from Brighton down, indeed United.
Yeah.
Rangers, Celtic are not all Scottish owned. It's a tough task for an individual to own a club in Britain today, as you know, Simon.
But David, I mean, I can't get my head around it. Is it an attitude, a cultural attitude? Do they see something that's worth investing in because of influence and different motivations? Because I make the same point. You look across all the clubs in England now, and it isn't just the Premier League clubs and the Championship clubs. It's across the board about overseas investment, and it does concern me. I remember John Hall at Newcastle talking about it concerning him. Does it concern you?
I don't know where it's going. I mean, is it flavour of the year? Is it like buying a piece of art you think it's going to appreciate? It can't go on growing forever. I mean, the players are playing too much football. I mean, this world thing just now, you watch 10 minutes and turn it off. You don't know what the purpose of it is. There's too much football just now. And I don't understand why people keep buying English clubs.
David, we have to take a very short break here. Can we finish off the other side of the break with you for a few more minutes, if you'd oblige me?
No problem. Delighted.
So David Murray with us live on talkSPORT as we approach 11:30.
Just when you thought nothing could get more shocking than Chelsea's 2-hour weather delay at the Club World Cup, well, this happens. Manchester City are out of the tournament and Pep has lost the spring in his step.
It's sadness because I felt that we were happy here. We were in the training sessions, have been really, really good, all of them. But the level in these competitions, World Cup, and I said, yeah, the only regret a little bit, I have to review the game a little bit, is that we allowed them to run a little bit more than expected.
A familiar problem was their downfall, according to Jamie Jackson. Leaky defence cost them yet again.
They can be got at too easy, and this was the problem last season, essentially. Yes, they just too often it's become the way to beat them.
Well, a loss is a loss, but we've also been warned the consequences of this will affect City in the Premier League next season.
You know, the players are going to be a little bit more fatigued come November, December time because they haven't had this break. You haven't been able to maybe use that 150 million to buy new players.
And Jack Draper leads the British Challenge on day 2 of Wimbledon after a record-breaking start for the home players. He's admitted he's feeling pretty relaxed ahead of it all too.
You guys have asked me a lot about the pressure and all this sort of stuff, but I'm not thinking about that at all. I'm thinking about how I can play my tennis out there.
All your latest is at talkSPORT.com.
Jim White and Simon Jordan live on talkSPORT this Tuesday morning. We're in the company of former Rangers owner and chairman Sir David Murray, who has joined the show ahead of the release of his new book, Metal, Tragedy, Courage and Titles. What a reaction we're getting, Sir David, at this end. Great interview. What an honest, genuine man, says one listener this morning. Here's another, David. Can I ask Sir David, through you, Jim, if he ever regrets making the call for every £5 Celtic spend, we will spend a tenner? Because did that mentality not to some degree hamper his club? I dare you to ask him, Jim. Well, there's no daring involved here. And Sir David, you'll answer it, I'm sure.
Well, we did spend it, and that's why we won so many trophies. That's a fact of life. My main aim was to win trophies.
Yeah.
It wasn't to be second. We were out to win every season if we could. Now, we did stretch it, but I do think factors... Do you know what the strange thing is? If the Inland Revenue had been honest with us and the 75 million was a 33, the club wouldn't have been sold. The club wouldn't have been sold. We could have managed that. We had a stadium worth more, with players worth more. But then, we can talk about Craig White, which I'm happy to do, the 75 became 100 and more, and it became the problem that they became for the liquid.
As I mentioned earlier, David, 2 decades of ownership, indexed to both unprecedented success, followed by near disaster. Now, before we get to Craig White, you had the chance to sell in 2005 to a highly successful businessman called Jack Petchey. What happened?
Well, we were down a property dinner in the south of France. They did this MIPIM thing every year. You go down and everybody says they're going to build property. And I met his Petchey's people. So he'd been chairman of Watford, as you know. And he'd agreed to buy the club, and the teams had been working legally. So we hired a suite in the Dorchester Hotel to close the deal. And as I sat down, I tried to push it a wee bit more. And he told me something that he wanted to maybe build some flats and change one of the... in the head going, I said, no. It didn't right. I should have put myself first and done the bloody deal and got away from Rangers. You know, I look at my failures in life. That was one major one. I should have walked then, but I didn't because I was putting the club first. And the second was when the property was going, I should have taken all the money out and run for the hills. But you don't. You do your things right at the time. But that's what happened. And their lawyers, there was about 8 people in a room looking at me, and I went, without joke, it was a Mont Blanc pen I was meant to sign. I was going to say no. Do this, walked out the room, and that was it.
In 2011, let's get to it. You sold Rangers for £1. to the businessman Craig White. Tell me why, and tell me thereafter, in your eyes, why it was such a disaster for you and the football club.
Well, let's just talk it straight. It wasn't a pound. It was an offer document made through the stock exchange with proof of funds from a major legal firm to clear the 18 million of debt and to invest £5 million a year. It makes a great headline, £1, £1. That's what happened. He didn't deliver what he said he would do. And I had met him later in November, and I went to the south of France and said, look, you're meant to put £7.5 million in now. Where's the money? It's definitely coming. It's definitely coming. And it never came. Now, from day one, I didn't think he wasn't going to pay the national insurance, the tax on the players. I mean, I'm the guy getting in the chin. I mean, the net, I accept that in hindsight. But, if you're selling your house and you get a legal offer and you get proof of funds from what you think the deal's done, don't you? You don't
but David, you wouldn't move out until someone gave you the money, though, would you?
Well, the money was there. We had the proof of funds. Good point, yes, but you don't move out a football club. He had, in his eyes, he had owned it. We won the league the week before. No, sorry, he won the league the week after he bought the club. He's walking around. If he owns the place, going to spend money and everything. But as far as we were concerned, the legal firm were fined vast sums of money for not delivering their part of the bargain. But taking all the factors into consideration, saying it was the deal to do. But in my opinion, the HMRC had frozen the club. And because this offer on paper met the requirements, which later I deeply regret what happened. But that's what happened.
I mean, the club went into administration and then liquidation. I know you've been asked to apologise to Rangers fans before, and you've done that. But having said that, Sir David, do you accept your legacy is forever tainted by the sale to White?
Yeah, partly. But it wasn't all bad. Fine, you can pick on any bit on your career, Simon's career, and my career, good, bad, and different. I mean, that was horrific what happened, and I accept that. But I've done quite a few other things in my life.
I know that, David, but in the book you say, looking back, I made a huge mistake. Rangers went into administration. After someone has been disqualified for 7 years, it's not that easy to carry out checks. I also believe it's down to the individual to make us aware of that. What, White? That White should made you aware of it?
Of course he should. He shouldn't have signed the paper, but he was struck off as a director. And he did it. He knew what he was doing, but nobody else knew. But all the second, why didn't everybody else come up with the facts? There was one letter I received that he'd been involved in a dodgy bus company years before, but that's not enough to stop doing a deal.
No, but David, you were selling the football club. It was on you, wasn't it?
Yes, I accept that. I'm not running away. I'm on here not denying that. I was the owner. The buck stops at the top. There was a lot of other people involved with me. I don't see them. They've sort of gone for the hills. They've gone very quiet. But I accept the responsibility. And I've admitted that in the book, Jim.
You ever encountered White again?
Well, I went down to see him in November, and there was 7 million more money due, and he said it was oncoming. No, I've never heard from him since.
I notice you feel that Celtic chairman Peter Lowell was positively revelling in the demise of the club thereafter. You felt the mantra was, let's bury Rangers.
Obviously, yeah, but you did that every year in the football, didn't you? You're trying to beat them. I don't think that's an unfair statement. If it was the other way around, I'd have tried to beat Celtic. And I did regularly.
The tit-for-tat approach and the mentality between the old firm boardrooms, David, how do you look at it now? Is it all a bit small fry?
I got on well with the Celtic people. I respected them. And we wanted to beat each other. But there's no animosity or anything like that. But I felt, after Rangers went in demise, I felt Celtic didn't help Rangers. They were trying to keep Rangers down. And then there was no Rangers people in the SFA. I think it just got out of hand.
I mean, what do you make of what happened? I had views at the time, and I wasn't a huge admirer of Charles Green. I was told by people like Theo Pafitas, pack it in, he's a good guy, right? And I was like, no, I'm not sure about him. What was your reaction to what Scottish football did to Rangers? Was it did they get what they deserved in terms of the way Craig White handled it after you left? Was it an ultimate inevitability, or do you think that it was unfair what happened?
I think it was unfair, but a lot of clubs, I think, who Rangers used to beat regularly, they saw it as payback time to give Rangers a kicking when they were down, to put it bluntly. And the fans know that as well. And the thing was, if they're after, this is what makes this whole thing worse, that when the Charles Greens and the other people came in, the procurator fiscal charged them all. This has become a right dog's Brit. It's a mess. And the Scottish Government have paid out 60 million in compensation so far for failed charges by the procurator fiscal. What a mess it's become. Beyond when, after Craig White.
What about today, David? Do you believe that Rangers have lost their Scottish identity and that they need to get it back? You think Celtic have got it? They've got a Scottish captain in Callum McGregor. You want to see more Scottishness in Rangers?
Obviously, because we're a Scottish club, but I think a lot of clubs have lost that. And I watched Man City last night. I don't think their English players started, did they? Foden came on later on. But no, you need a Scottish core in Scotland, and Rangers have seemed to have lost that a wee bit. Why did they not buy Lewis Ferguson? Why the young boy Lennon Miller, would be a normal target, Jim, at the time. But the club either doesn't have the resources or they decide to go for a foreign player. But that's down to the directors up until now. It may change now. I hope so.
And let's talk about now. The 49ers are in. What's your belief there? Are Rangers onto a good thing going forward?
I think the fans will have to be patient. This won't be a 3-month plan. This will be a 3 to 5 year plan. These are astute businessmen who will take the club to a base level. And when this news came out recently, I was asked the question, and I said, in my opinion, you'll find out what direction of travel is with the first 3 sales and the first 3 buys. We haven't bought a player yet. They haven't sold a player yet. But I think that, they're putting £20 million in. I mean, I don't know if they've paid for all the players they've already got. I don't know where that 20 million is going to go. So I wish them well. I'm sure they're shrewd business people. They've been successful at Leeds. And let's hope that. But I don't think it's going to happen as quickly as people would hope.
The book is a tremendous read, Sir David. I really enjoyed it. I know Simon's going to read it as well. A final point from me. A current SPL chairman once asked you for advice. I think this was quite recent. And you said, enjoy the good days because you'll fail eventually. Managers do, chairmen do. Is that what happens?
Still happens today, doesn't it?
Yeah. You're looking well. So David Murray, thank you so much for joining us live in the show.
Nice to meet you, Simon.
Nice to speak to you, David.
All the best. Thank you very much. Bye.
So David Murray with us live. We're off to Wimbledon now before we hit the next break, and we'll join Lisa Sullivan. Lisa.
Yeah, and another hot, steamy day at the All England Club where Novak Djokovic, Coco Gauff and Petra Kvitova, playing her last Wimbledon, will all take to the grass. But we have to focus once again on the Brits. After 7 through yesterday, a record for day one. We've got 9 more in action today, 2 already underway. And Heather Watson's just taken the first set against the number 23 seed from Denmark, Clara Tauson. So she's looking pretty good at the moment. Johannes Monday, a name you will not know potentially, but a man from Hull who is taking on the mighty Tommy Paul. Just lost the first set there, but playing pretty well. So we're keeping an eye on all things British and all things wonderful here at the All England Club on day 2 at Wimbledon.
Lisa, thank you very much indeed. So David Murray, it's not often he speaks, but when he does, boy, can he make the odd point or two. So many people reacting to that. I'll pour over some of it with Simon after this. We're live in talkSPORT with Selco. It's where the trade goes. It is Jim White and it's Simon Jordan. We're live in talkSPORT. Talk more about Sir David Murray in that interview in the show before we go at 1 o'clock. But the wait is finally over as the reunion of the century starts this weekend, and we're giving a pair of Oasis tickets out to a couple of winners for July the 19th. That's not all though. Alongside the tickets, we'll put you up free for a night in a hotel, and we'll stake $5,000 in your back pocket. Listen up now. This is everything you need to know on how to enter.
All right, our kids, you have to be over 18 to enter in the UK, excluding Northern Ireland, for the chance to win a pair of tickets to the most electrifying rock and roll reunion of the century, a hotel stay and $5,000 spending money. Text the word Oasis to 83338 by Monday the 7th of July at 11 p.m. and you'll be entered into the draw to go supersonic this summer. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission, or post your name and number to Oasis Prize Draw, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 HEP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 10th of July.
This is a talkSPORT limited promotion run on talkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. Good luck, yeah? Sorted.
Sorted. In the meantime, it's time for this.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Get ready for the golden era of sports betting. Visit betmgm.co.uk or download the app. 18+gambleaware.org.
And we're joined by Matt Gibson from BetMGM. Matt, good morning to you. Let's have a look at the transfer situation at the moment. A bit of a roundup. Who's going where? What's your thinking?
Yeah, morning, fellas. Always like to have a look on a Tuesday about who might be going where and some of the comings and goings at the top level. Talking to a couple of Liverpool fans this morning, they were getting very excited that Alex Isak has come in from 11-4, only to 3-1 to go to Liverpool. But fear not, Geordies, he's still 1-5 to stay at St James's Park. I think that's. Just a couple of Liverpool fans getting overexcited with a little odds movement. Harvey Elliott, 6-4 to go to Brighton. We mentioned him yesterday, 11-4 to stay at Liverpool. Maybe not a bad move after his Euros campaign to play a bit more first team football. But the big mover, I'm sorry to say it, Simon, Ebere Eze, 1-5 to go to Arsenal, 3-1 to go to Spurs. Arsenal weren't even in the running to sign him last week. He was 3-4 to stay at Palace last week. He's now all the way out to 4-1 to stay at Palace. But Arsenal are rumoured to sign a load of top talent, to be fair. Hugo Ekitike, 6-4. Victor Gyökeres, 4-6. We've mentioned him a few times on the show. Benjamin Sesko, 1-7. I'm just wondering if you're an Arsenal fan and you're looking at Chelsea pretty much signing João Pedro in a weekend, City spending an early doors, and Liverpool signing Florian Wirtz, among others. Are you going, we really need to see some players through the door, not just sort of strong links in the odds market? They really need to get some signed, don't they?
Well, yeah, but you want to get the right players through the door. So, I mean, there is an outcome that you need to achieve. You've got a window, and Arsenal must know what they need to do, and there's no indication that they aren't going to spend. So I would be moderately patient, but that's not how it works, is it? Football fans want instantaneous gratification, news as it comes along. It's all part of the entertainment business of sport. But I would like to see Arsenal buying a centre forward. So, I mean, the fact that João Pedro has gone to Chelsea yeah, is a disappointment, I would imagine, because a player of that calibre, I think, would do a great job at Arsenal in that particular position, wouldn't they?
I agree. Hottest ever first day at Wimbledon. What's your take on it, Matt?
I'll refrain from doing any weather reporting today, but I think it's got to be fairly hot down there again. 7 Brits did excellent through to round 2 yesterday. A special mention to Katie Bolter beating the 9 seed on centre. I'm sure that was pretty special for her. But I think one of the stories that we were reading about this morning is the amateur Oliver Tarve. He's booked a second round clash with Carlos, who obviously won in 5, being stretched quite a lot in his first match. But because Tarve is an amateur, he only gets to keep $10,000 of his prize money. By qualifying to round 2 Wimbledon, I think he's earned in excess of $100,000. Surely, I know there's rules around amateur sports, the same in golf as well, but surely the lad should be keeping a little bit more for himself after a really decent campaign so far.
What do you think?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? You've now got the Olympics, which is ostensibly an amateur sport, driven by amateur thinking at times. He's now paying medal winners. So you would have assumed that there was a way to do this, but don't worry about this kid. If he's good enough to win in the first round at Wimbledon, when he comes out of the auspices of being an amateur, he'll make enough money in tennis if he's this good enough to get through the first round at Wimbledon.
Yeah.
To not have to worry about what he may have lost
right.
here.
In the world of cricket, England-India second test tomorrow at Edgbaston. What's your thinking there, Matt?
Yeah, I think we'll be underway at Edgbaston by the time we go on air tomorrow. So a little preview of the sort of outrights and the thinking and the betting. England 8-13 odds on to win the game, 6-1 the draw. We know Bazball doesn't really do draws. India big price, 23-10 to win at Edgbaston, and kind of with good reason. I think they've played 8 times. England and India have met 8 times at Edgbaston. India have won none. I think India are going to be without star bowler Jasprit Bumrah, and England have 2 Yorkshiremen at the top of the world test ranking batting averages. So Joe Root and Harry Brook. I think Stokes, if he wins the toss, I think he'll throw India in, and with those 2 in form, I think he'll say we can chase anything. So I fully expect a result. Definitely no draw, and I think Stokes will just try and go again for what he did at Headingley with an unchanged side.
Matt, thank you very much indeed. Remember, visit betmgm.co.uk, download the app. 18+, begambleaware.org.
It's showtime on talkSPORT with BetMGM. Keep things golden with responsible play at betmgm.co.uk. 18+, gambleaware.org.
Simon, we're moving along real fast because one day to the Women's Euros beginning in Switzerland, where the England Lionesses will be looking to defend their crown, and Wales will be hoping to cause something of an upset at their first ever Euros. You can join Adrian Durham, former England international, and Natasha Dowie from 8 tonight for a special Euros preview show where they'll be joined by different guests and look ahead to an exciting month of women's football. England's most capped footballer of all time is Farrah Williams, and I'm delighted to say that Farrah, Simon, joins us live on the show. Farrah, what's left of it, good morning to you. How do you feel about it? Are you in full gear now thinking, yeah, this thing's almost upon us, and my goodness, England have a major chance of coming out on top, or do they?
Yeah, exactly that. I think it's been a long wait for the Euros to kick off. Switzerland have promised for it to be better than what England hosted in 2022 when they won it. And the England team looking good shape at the minute. I know they beat a weakened Jamaican team at the weekend 7-0, and there was a lot of talk about the opposition they faced going into the tournament. But for England, it was about getting players back on the pitch, back from injury, getting some loading into them, and going into the tournament full of confidence, scoring goals and keeping clean sheets, and they did just that. So they've got a great chance. They're probably in the group of death. If you look at the groups, they've got France and the Netherlands, and then obviously Wales, which will make it difficult for them. But they're more than capable of progressing out of the group.
You're right, Farrah. Group D, England, France, Netherlands and Wales. I'll get to Wales because it's a real adventure for them. We saw the under-21 boys do it at the weekend, and they retained their title. Is it a tough thing to do? Is it a big ask for the girls here to retain their title?
Absolutely. I think the teams within Europe, in terms of the investment that's been put in over the years, has certainly made the bridge the gap between the very best in Europe and the rest of the pack. So it's a lot more difficult to go back to back. I mean, what we do know is that Serena hasn't lost a game. She's won every game she's competed in as a manager in the European Championship. So she's done it with the Netherlands and England. So she doesn't know what it feels like to lose. So that gives us great confidence. But it's always difficult to go back-to-back champions. And they'll know that, and the pressure will be, enhanced even more than what it was in 2022. So there's a lot of pressure on them to bring it back. But they're in a good position, as I mentioned. They've got a great squad. And fingers crossed we avoid the Germans and Spain on the route to the final.
They could be close challengers, I would have thought. Millie Bright not going to be there. Mary Earp's not going to be there. Fran Kirby not going to be there. Mary Earps believes she was villainised after her retirement from international football, and that provoked a lot of criticism, did it not? Where do you stand on that, Farrah? Is it unfair?
I think so. I think each to their own. I think, when you've played football for that long, and certainly when you represent England, I know some players sometimes feel the heat in terms of time away and the commitment that it is to play for your national team. And I think it was more the timing of her decision. A week before the meet up for camp, I think it left a sour taste in some of the fans, and obviously she's a big part of this England squad. And she got beat for best goalkeeper 2 years on the bounce, 2022 and 2023. So she's a big character within the team. So I think the fans were disappointed with maybe the timing of it, but I think everybody's entitled to a decision, and if that's the right one for Mary, then that's the right one for her.
Yeah. I think it was timing, wasn't it, Simon? Especially with Mary Earps, as Farah has said. If you're a member of that squad, Mary's suddenly not involved.
I don't know the personalities, but if you've been a number one choice goalkeeper and you're now being put in a situation where you're not going to be, it's a difficult choice to make. Is the team in good nick, though? I mean, I'm looking at the results, Farah. The last two of them, the last two of the competitive games, they've lost to Belgium and Spain. Do they go, and despite the result against Jamaica, do they go into it in good fettle with those sort of losses leading up to a tournament?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they've been really inconsistent. I think that's been the frustration with this team, certainly since getting to that World Cup final. They've been really inconsistent off the back of that. But they've had a lot of injuries. The likes of Lauren James, Lauren Hemp and Alex Greenwood, 3 key players within the team have been injured in those games, weren't able to participate. And I think, they're in key positions, centre-half and centre-mid. I think those 2 key positions within the team, they didn't really have any replacement. But those 3 players are back, and they're back and looking fresh. So yeah, I think it will be difficult for them in terms of that will be playing on their mind, that they've lost to top nations, that defeat to Spain after managing the first half and going 1-0 up and then losing that second half. But they made many changes. They were looking at players in that final game going into the Euros and selection. So it's been a difficult year for them, I would say, in terms of that and the consistency. But I think that result will do them the world of beating Jamaica. 7-0, really good performance.
And finally, Farah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about legacy after the last Euros win. Here we go again. Is legacy important?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look at the impact that these Lionesses had in 2022 and the amount of people, young girls that started participating in football off the back of that, and I think, the National Lottery, I'm doing the big football day on Saturday with them, and that's going to run across the whole of the Euros for a month, and their investment in the game and really giving opportunities to young girls. But I think without what the Lionesses did, I don't think we'd have had, the visibility of the women's game. So, of course, legacy is really important for these players.
Fantastic. Farah Williams, thank you so much for being with us. 1 day to go to the Women's Euros over in Switzerland. You will not miss a trick live on talkSPORT as we pop up to 12 noon this Tuesday lunchtime.
Just when you thought nothing could get more shocking than Chelsea's 2-hour weather delay at the Club World Cup, well, this happens. Manchester City are out of the tournament and Pep has lost the spring in his step.
It's sadness because I felt that we were happy here. We were in the training sessions, have been really, really good, all of them. But the level in these competitions, World Cup, and I said, yeah, the only regret a little bit, I have to review the game a little bit, is that we allowed them to run a little bit more than expected.
A familiar problem was their downfall, according to Jamie Jackson. Leaky defence cost them yet again.
They can be got at too easy, and this was the problem last season, essentially. Yes. They just too often, as I say, very rare before that. I can remember one game, maybe Ivan Toney, that's how far back it was for Brentford. Before the World Cup, he scored a couple of goals and he got turned over this way. But it's so rare, or it was so rare. Now it's become the way to beat them.
Well, a loss is a loss, but we've also been warned the consequences of this will affect City in the Premier League next season.
We've now been away for a month, 5 weeks, whatever it may be. Now you've got the problem of what does that knock-on effect have for next season? The players are going to be a little bit more fatigued come November, December time because they haven't had this break. You haven't been able to maybe use that 150 million to buy new players because you haven't got it. Simple as that. So your squad isn't as big as maybe you hoped.
Elsewhere, Brentford's new boss, Keith Andrews, has had his first press conference and he's spoken about how he's been eyeing up a role of this kind for a long time.
2 or 3 years ago, I knew I was ready to be a head coach. Would I have foreseen it being this role at this level? Probably not, realistically. Look, the path I've taken has been very deliberate to get to this stage.
And Jack Draper leads the British Challenge on day 2 of Wimbledon after a record-breaking start for the home players. He's admitted he's feeling pretty relaxed ahead of it all too.
You guys have asked me a lot about the pressure and all this sort of stuff, but I'm not thinking about that at all. I'm thinking about how I can play my tennis out there.
All your latest is at talkSPORT.com.
All of a sudden, it is Tuesday afternoon. Good afternoon to you. It's Jim White and it's Simon Jordan, and we are live on talkSPORT. Again, I will say it. Thanks for all the texts, the messages, the tweets that are coming into the show all the time. You guys and girls out there want to get involved with us, and that's great by me. So many getting in touch with the interview we did with the former Rangers owner and chairman, Sir David Murray. Maybe try and touch on that with Simon to an extent before we go today at 1 o'clock. But a lot to get through in the final hour, and today is no different to any other day. This Saturday, talkSPORT brings you more bare-knuckle boxing as Harry Gigliotti, I love that name, and Callum Chicane face off at BKB Bolton. The event will be free and available to watch on the talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel. And joining us now, I am delighted to say, to look ahead to that event and much more, is the Chief Executive of BKB, Bare Knuckle Boxing Promotion, Greg Bloom. Greg, good afternoon to you, mate.
Thanks for having me back.
And former boxer turned pundit commentator, in my view, one of the best in the business, not only in the ring but outside it, Paulie Malignaggi.
Thanks for having me, guys.
What an introduction we've given you both. But before we go any further, Simon, we witnessed Paulie coming in and asking me, how did Man City get on last night against Al Hilal in the Club World Cup? And you cannot believe that they went out.
I was already still shocked from Inter losing to Fluminense, and then this result shocked me absolutely after I saw what Man City did to Juventus. That was crazy to me, crazy. And the more gossip fodder is Inzaghi's the coach of Al Hilal. He's the one that had just taken Inter to the Champions League final.
Greg, we didn't expect this, but then again, it's Paulie Malignaggi, so maybe we should have.
Yeah, you can expect anything when the Magic Man's here. Yeah, no, I'm a big footy fan. Big footy fan.
You're a big fan of this fella when he was fighting in the ring.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him. I love his commentary. I mean, he did a show with me a couple of weeks ago, and that, for me, I couldn't get a word in, which is a rarity. That's great. That's great.
Once the motor gets running, you know how it goes, guys.
Greg, let's get to it. Bare knuckle boxing making its debut in Bolton this Saturday, and talkSPORT will be all over it. Bolton Brawl. Why Bolton?
Like I said last time I was on the show, what BKB is trying to do in the UK is travel all around to a bunch of different cities and expose the fans to what BKB brings, which is the best bare knuckle fighting in the world.
So why should people be enticed to get themselves in front of and watch Gigliotti, I love it, against Chicane?
Gigliotti-Skane is a classic boxer-puncher fight.
both undefeated, young, hungry guys. Harry Gigliotti, the world champion at 140. Callum Skane, 2-0. Tough Welsh fighter with a storied amateur career. So it's just going to be two young bulls going head up.
What are the early indications you're getting? Are people buying into it?
Yeah, it's going to be a full house as usual. Everyone's excited for this fight. It's two of the best, one from the US, one from the UK, and we're going to see who reigns supreme.
Almost inevitably, Paulie is one of the broadcasters involved, but soon to be involved in the fighting itself.
Yeah.
Why does that not surprise me? How did that come about?
You know, I got to a certain age and I started thinking to myself, you know, if I'm going to do this again, I've got to do it right now. You know, I've got to do it right now.
How old are you?
I'm 44, but do I look 44?
Absolutely not.
I mean, one thing about me is my only vice is eating. So if I just have to cut down the calories, you know, I don't really drink much. Don't do drugs. So I think I've aged pretty well, you know, and I've always kept in decent shape even after retirement. So, you know, when I started thinking about it, I also started thinking about in which direction to go with a career. People ask me, why not boxing? I said, bro, who wants to do 10 rounds? Who wants to do 12 rounds? You know, bare knuckle, you can do, you know, shorter fights. So I thought to myself, I said, you know, I've got good legs. I can still fight, but 10, 12 rounds, who wants to be in there for 10, 12 rounds? Because I wasn't a knockout puncher, let's face it, right? So I got to just sit there doing 10, 12 rounds. So I said, you know what? BKB, the BYB BKB brand, have really helped me in my commentary career. I've been with them from early on, and I said, you know, if I match up with them, it's good for branding, both for the business and for myself. And I think if I can help them the way they've helped me, and promote the sport and promote the BKB brand, I think it would be mutually beneficial. And also, it keeps me goal oriented. You know what I mean? If I put a vision in my mind instead of just saying, oh, I'm gonna give it a try, and the vision is, you know, attack for a world championship. You know, because you know we've talked about now. Okay, I'm thinking about fighting. I'm going to be fighting. And all of a sudden, I saw guys calling me out from all over the place. Guys who, you know, were driving Ubers on the side. All of a sudden calling me out. I'm like, I don't even know who you are, mate. You know what I mean? Like, what is it? Everybody's calling me out. You know, in boxing, there's a hierarchy. You know, you'd see guys in the top 10 calling you out. You kind of know who they are.
Yeah.
You didn't see the guy who's stocking groceries at Sainsbury's calling you out. You know what I mean? But here, this sport is madness. As soon as I started, we made an announcement. Everybody's calling me out. So you know, I think it's just good for branding. I think I'd love to, you know, be a part of the BKB.
And you are a part of it. I mean, what is it? A 3-fight deal?
3-fight deal.
Yeah. So what? I mean, I know what the answer to this is. What is Paulie giving you?
I mean, Paulie Malignaggi is a name in boxing that resonates all over the world. So he's going to bring a lot of eyeballs, and you know, we want to help him accomplish his goal, which is to be a 2-sport world champion. At least give him the opportunity. And you know, he's been great for the company. He's one of the family, and we're excited to have him, you know, fight and go after his goals.
Are you comfortable that this great guy who fought with such distinction in the ring,
not for me to be comfortable,
is getting into bare knuckle fighting?
I'm not have to get in the ring with him. Listen, if he thinks he wants to do it, why shouldn't he be able to do it? I mean, listen, I'm not as versed with this sport. When you were last in, I was like, I'm not sure, but that's because I don't know enough about it, and it feels like there's an element of more brutality attached to it. I saw some videos of it, and it has its own resonance. But I was going to ask you, you've been at world level, you've been a world champion at world level in your chosen discipline. You're now moving into a different discipline. You fought in 2019, you lost in 2019, didn't you? But in this instance, is it harder? I mean, I know you're talking about the rounds and there's less impetus on having the legs, but you're still getting hit without padded gloves.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. In 2019, I thought I won the fight anyway, but the issue...
Who's that? Artem Lobov.
Yeah, I broke my hand in the second round of that fight. It was with the rival promotion, but I thought I still controlled the fight. I still thought I boxed very well one-handed. I think I showed that a different element. You see, this sport still needs a bit of an education. You know, the fans, the media in the sport needs a bit of an education. So I think that's why with BKB we're also so strong with our commentary team. You know, I think
because we think of when I think of Lenny McLean, I think of Roy Pretty Boy Shaw and people of that nature.
But here's the thing. If you look at just the blood and the bruising, you're gonna say, okay, oh my God, it's terrible. But concussive power comes more from boxing, right? Because the glove is small enough to protect your hand, but it's not small enough to protect the damage you're imposing on people. If you look at catastrophic brain injuries. They happen in boxing. They don't happen in bare knuckle fighting. They don't even happen in MMA really, because MMA half the time you're laying on the floor anyway, grappling. So it's the consistency of the concussive blows. And in boxing, that's what you have. You have a small glove. You see, if I'm not talking about the training in the gym, which also can damage, but it's a bigger glove, so you're designed to be able to do it again and again and again. On fight night, a boxing glove.
Does it hurt more in the moment?
It hurts more with pro boxing gloves. People think I'm crazy. I'm telling you, I kid you not. People think like, oh, does it hurt more? I said, bro, I did this. It doesn't hurt with bare knuckle. I don't understand. It doesn't. I'm getting hit. Obviously, it's not tickling, but it's not concussive like with a boxing glove. If I got hit with a clean big hook with a boxing glove on, it's like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like I got to make sure I'm not stepping in potholes, But with bare hands, it could happen, but a guy who swings that hard with bare hands, he's only going to be able to swing that hard a few more times before he's going to start thinking about, I can't hit that hard because my own hand is hurting, so I've got to be more precise and all that other stuff. So there's a give and take.
A US audience now breaking through to a UK audience. What's the experience as far as you're concerned?
Experience has been fantastic. The UK fans really resonate with this sport. And
how do they differ?
I think the UK fans are a lot more rowdy. We open the doors 2 hours early, and the place is full within 15 minutes. So they're excited for the fights. They're cheering until the last bell of the main event, and it's different. You see the difference in the UK fans, and I think they're so passionate about fight sports, and they're really grabbing a hold of bare knuckle boxing, especially at BKB. So it's really exciting coming over here and growing our brand and growing the sport.
I'm looking at a text that's come in from one of the listeners. I don't care what the guys say. It's too ugly for me, this. Too much blood and gore.
And that's what I'll tell you. There is more blood and gore, but you won't have your favorite fighter risking his life in the hospital in a coma after a fight. I'll tell you that right now. The bleeding in bare knuckle fighting is exteriorly. The damage is exterior. In boxing, it's some exterior, but it's mostly internal. Yeah. That's more dangerous.
85% of the injuries are cuts. So it's 4 times, like I think I mentioned this last time I was on the show, that it's 4 times less concussive than boxing and 5 times less than MMA.
And for me that's done it, I'll tell you this. It may hurt your modeling career because you'll have more cuts and you'll have more breaks because you can break bones in your face, you can break bones in your hands. You can do the same thing in pro boxing, but it's more difficult to have as many cuts.
What size of the events, Greg? I mean, what size auditoriums are you playing into? What size attendances are you getting?
Right now we're at about 1,500. Yeah. But for Paulie's fight, we're going to be in about a 3,000-4,000 seat arena, moving up.
And you'll sell it out.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, again, we want our place to be full. We want it to be loud. We want all the fans to be going crazy. And when Paulie steps in on September 6th, the place will be full and it will be going crazy.
And I was really happy about, and I let them know that the UK was always I wouldn't say a home base for me. I'm obviously not from the UK, but it's a fan base that is rowdy. It's a fan base that is really engaged. Full of life and engaged. That's the great word.
Paulie, you're going to stay with us the other side of this break. Greg, before you go, tell me, as the chief exec of BKB, what can we look forward to? It's going to be live on the talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel this Saturday night. What are we going to get?
You're going to get 12 very exciting fights. I mean, besides the main event, you have Scott McHugh against Liam Swanee Howell as the co-main, Dan Gittins against Harvey Dossett, and the list goes on and on. Everyone should tune in. Everyone should start to watch BKB because, like I said last time, we are the biggest thing in combat sports, and we're coming for everyone.
My God, you're selling it well. Greg, thank you for your time. Greg Bloom, Chief Executive of BKB. Paulie is going to stay the other side of the break, and we're going to touch a little bit on boxing. Stay with us.
Boxing update on talkSPORT with DAZN, the global home of boxing. Buy now at dazn.com/boxing.
Now then, this Saturday, live from Manchester, ex-super lightweight contender Jack Catterall moves to welterweight to face unbeaten Harlem Eubank. Available live only in DAZN. Sign up at dazn.com/boxing. A lot going on because this Saturday also talkSPORT brings you more bare knuckle boxing as Harry Gigliotti and Callum Shane face off at BKB Bolton. And we've just been hearing about it, and talkSPORT's all over it because it's free and available to watch on the talkSPORT Boxing YouTube channel. And we heard from Greg Bloom, the chief exec of BKB. We're hearing from you in big numbers as well this lunchtime. And there's one. I always fancied having a go at bare knuckle boxing, but I'm too old now at 64. But I'll be watching the bare knuckle boxing fights because I think it's a pure form of boxing, says Rock from Colchester. I'm 68. Paulie Malignaggi's with us. Maybe I should be thinking about it, mate. What do you think?
I think you've had a matchup. If you step on the scale, if you may have a contender who's willing to go at it with you.
No, Rock could do it, but I'm a born coward, mate. Honestly. Since we have you in studio, though, it's a great opportunity to talk with Paulie Malignaggi, of course, who was an immensely popular fighter in the ring. Simon, we were talking about him before Paulie came in. So it's an opportunity to talk about a variety of things that are hitting the headlines at this moment. Chris Eubank Jr. will fight Conor Benn in a rematch in London, Paulie, September the 20th. You watched the first fight. The man to my left has never really bought into it. Did you?
I'll tell you what, before the fight, I didn't buy into it, no. Before the fight, I was telling myself, this is sons of two legends, but neither has really accomplished anything in the pros to be this big of a magnitude of a fight. But I'll say this is where the British boxing fan base get credit. They are such big boxing fans here in this country that only in this country could a fight between guys who are sons of legends become this big. If you give me sons of legends in America, because there's so many sports going on, it's not going to really carry unless those guys are championship level. I'm not sure Conor Benn and Eubank Jr. will ever win a world championship. I'm not sure they're of that level. I think Eubank Jr. was crafty in some ways. Obviously, he was in with some good names. They're entertaining in terms of the way they fight, but I'm not sure they're at that elite world class level. But what carries it in the UK is the boxing fan base. That's why I say the boxing fans in the UK are a different level. You know what I mean? It's a great atmosphere. Yeah. And you can put it wasn't just that it was a big fight. And then they honestly entertained. I gotta say, they realized what was on the line as far as their reputation, their last names, because they fought that way.
It was a sellout.
They fought that way.
Because I was there, and there was a waiting list.
And I watched it on TV, and I'll tell you what, when you're making that kind of money consistently, it's hard to dig in that much. You know what I mean? These guys dug in round 12. They were still fighting hard. You got to give them credit for that. You've got to give them credit for that. As far as do I think, was it worth it? At first I wasn't buying into it. I said, nah, this should not be a big event. You know what I mean? But then I saw comparing it. Well, we did a garbage show in Times Square with some big names in New York. Maybe the week before. Horrible. Nobody performed. Horribly entertainment. To call it entertainment would have been a mockery to the word entertainment. And then I watched Ben and Eubank Jr. and I said, this is why blood runs through the course of these people, whatever the word I'm looking for is, runs through people's veins. And you know, when they watch a big fight, so you want to see what I'm talking about. This is why you make the rematch. Okay, economically speaking, of course it sells because again, you know everybody's interested. But these guys put on. These guys could put on a dud. Like remember, just a week before, Ryan Garcia was supposed to be in a tune-up, and Devin Haney was supposed to be in tune-ups to build up that rematch. And they were going to build it up, and they were going to make people worth it. Instead, they made people not want to watch it.
Right. And you called it mediocre.
No, I didn't. I said it was two mediocre fighters.
Two mediocre fighters.
And in this event, and I agree, it was two mediocre fighters. But again, their name recognition carries. And then, what's more important? They didn't take advantage of the fan base. You see, when it came to the other show I'm talking about, they take all the money, these guys, and they didn't even put on. True. Eubank and Ben didn't take advantage of the fan base. They didn't say, "Oh, we've just conned these guys, and now we're gonna, do a little dance off like Mayweather and Pacquiao did," because everybody bought into it already. No, they fought like their last names meant something.
So, Paulie,
and they've earned the right to that rematch.
Jake Paul won his 12 pro boxing fight at the weekend, outpointing Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. in California. Jake Paul. Should he be ranked by the WBC and the WBA?
No, he's not. He's not of the level. I don't think he's of the level. He's, mediocre, novice. He's learning. He's gotten a little bit better each and every time, but certainly not a ranked fighter on the world level. I recently described him on my YouTube channel, Paulie TV, as a your turn, my turn fighter. Your turn, my turn fighter is a fighter that only knows how to fight. Either he goes or you go. He's not capable of understanding how to punch when you're punching because it takes a risk. If I'm going to punch when you're punching, that means I can't bail when you're punching at me. I have to hold my ground, slip, counter, or catch, shoot, And that takes a little bit more calmness. That takes a little bit more of a sense of timing. Any prospect worth his weight can at least transition defense to offense smoothly. It's not one or the other. Yeah. Jake Paul is still in a situation where he's either doing one or he's doing the other. And that, to me, is not a prospect. Let alone a contender who should be ranked.
Does Daniel Dubois beat Alexander Usyk this time?
I think he's got a better chance only because Usyk is getting older. I think Usyk is the class of the generation. But I think at 37 years old, anytime you step in the ring at 37 years old, you could get old on that night. And Dubois is really, the momentum is with him. He's confident. He's living up to the expectation that was given to him years ago that people thought maybe he was going to be a dud. Now he's starting to live up to it. He's confident. But I still only think that it's Usyk's age that factors in because the best Usyk still beats the best of war.
Yeah. And finally, I don't want to finish on that sort of downbeat note, but I watched Deontay Wilder at the weekend.
Well, that's a downbeat note.
That's a downbeat note. And he beat Tyrrell Herndon. And I remember saying to you quite facetiously beforehand, looking at Tyrrell Herndon, by the sounds of him, I might have a chance.
Yeah.
It was mediocre.
Well, I'll tell you what, during the warm-ups, one of my friends hit me up and said, oh, look at Herndon. He's preparing how he's going to get knocked out. And I saw him in the dressing room, and he was just stepping around. And I said, I've never seen a guy warming up in the dressing room not throwing a punch before a fight. This guy is actually warming up to survive the fight. He wasn't throwing a punch and sure enough, he came out in the fight and he was stepping around to the left, stepping around to the right, stepping around to the left, stepping around to the right. Yeah. And Wilder couldn't find him. Yeah. I thought it was a horrible performance. I thought the highlight of the night was actually our BKB super heavyweight champion Gustavo Trujillo getting a knockout on the undercard because he does some pro boxing on the side. Our super heavyweight Gustavo Trujillo is one to watch for BKB. Yet, Paulie, just give a shameless plug to BKB one more time.
Shameless, but
we have a great super heavyweight champion.
And yet, talk of AJ Wilder doesn't seem to go away.
Yeah, it's one of those fights that it was the coulda, shoulda, wouldas, and so I think people will still live in the nostalgia. I think if Wilder had given some kind of performance, it could have maybe rebuilt some interest because I think people will always kind of be curious about that fight, the what if. But man, Wilder made you never want to watch him again. I don't know, man. I don't know what to do with that one.
Next time we're with Paulie Malignaggi in studio, we'll get him to say what it really means.
We didn't want to go on a downbeat no, but it's hard to go on an upbeat no with that one.
Good luck with the bare knuckle boxing.
Thanks, mate.
I'll be watching for it. Of course, live on Saturday from Bolton. That's then, this is now. Let's head down to Wimbledon and get the latest from Lisa.
Big shock, Jessica Pegula, the number 3 seed, is out. She's been beaten 6-2, 6-3 in less than an hour by Elisabetta Cocciaretto of Italy. Italian tennis really doing very, very well at the moment. Just keeping an eye on Heather Watson. She took the first set 6-2 against Clara Thorsen of Denmark. Thorsen is serving to level the match 5-4 in the second set, the 23 seed. And also, we're just keeping an eye on Johannes Monday, one of the British wild cards, who's taking on Tommy Paul of the United States. Trailing but not playing badly. 1 game all in the third set. He is 2 sets down to the American number 13 seed.
Bobby in Bristol is one of many who just loved Paulie Malignaggi being in studio with Simon and myself this lunchtime. Paulie's chat is so damn good, says Bobby in Bristol. Are you a tennis fan? Are you heading off down to Wimbledon, Paulie?
I'm a casual tennis fan. You know,
okay.
I'll watch here and there. Obviously, I like Sinner. I'm Italian, so I like Sinner. I like Berrettini. You know, I like my Italian tennis players. But also, I'll casually watch if they're
Just
playing.
before you go, I don't know if you know, Al Hilal beat Manchester City last night.
Yeah, Simone Inzaghi leaves Inter. Inter gets eliminated. His former team gets eliminated yesterday. The team that he took to the Champions League final, mind you. Yeah. And he advances past beating Man City. I couldn't believe that.
We know you
Especially
couldn't
when
believe
they just made Juventus. They ran Juventus off the field 5-2, and then they lose to Al Hilal. What am I watching?
Paulie's in shock, not quite speechless, but in shock. 12:30.
Just when you thought nothing could get more shocking than Chelsea's 2-hour weather delay at the Club World Cup, well, this happens. Manchester City are out of the tournament and Pep has lost the spring in his step.
It's sadness because I felt that we were happy here. We were in the training sessions, have been really, really good, all of them. But the level in these competitions, World Cup, and I said, yeah, the only regret a little bit, I have to review the game a little bit, is can we allow them to run a little bit more than expected.
A familiar problem was their downfall, according to Jamie Jackson. Leaky defence cost them yet again.
Season, essentially, yes. They just, too often, it's become the way to beat them.
Well, a loss is a loss, but we've also been warned the consequences of this will affect City in the Premier League next season.
You know, the players are going to be a little bit more fatigued come November, December time because they haven't had this break. You haven't been able to maybe use that 120 150 million to buy new players.
And Jack Draper leads the British Challenge on day 2 of Wimbledon after a record-breaking start for the home players. He's admitted he's feeling pretty relaxed ahead of it all too.
You guys have asked me a lot about the pressure and all this sort of stuff, but I'm not thinking about that at all. I'm thinking about how I can play my tennis out there.
All your latest is at talksport.com.
Now the wait is finally over as the reunion of the century starts this weekend. We're giving you the chance to win a pair of Oasis tickets, Manchester. Yep, you heard that right. Oasis Live 25 is sold out. You can get in courtesy of ourselves. Alongside the tickets, we'll put you up for a night, put $5,000 in your hip pocket, completely tax-free. So listen up now. Here's everything you need to know.
On iArcade, you have to be over 18 to enter in the UK, excluding Northern Ireland, for the chance to win a pair of tickets to the most electrifying rock and roll reunion of the century, a hotel stay and $5,000 spending money. Text the word Oasis to 83338 by Monday the 7th of July at 11 p.m. and you'll be entered into the draw to go supersonic this summer. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission or post your name and number to Oasis Prize Draw, PO Box 3190, Colchester, CO2 8GP, to arrive by 5 p.m. on the 10th of July.
This is a talkSPORT limited promotion run on talkSPORT, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. Good luck, yeah? Sorted.
How lovely. It's time for this.
The Real Deal on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. For the latest special offers, pick up this month's Real Deals in branch or view online at selcobw.com.
We're going to pick out who could be described as the real deal this week with Selco Builders Warehouse. For that, Simon, we turn our attention to the Aston Villa women's team. In a similar move to Chelsea, Aston Villa are set to sell their women's team to themselves to help them comply, yep, you got it, with the Premier League's PSR rules. A 90% stake will be bought by V Sports. Who are they? They're Villa's parent company, owned by the co-owners, Wes Edens and the Villa chairman, Nassef Sawiris. The other 10% would be sold to an external investor, potentially from the United States. Any deal would need Premier League approval. Simon, what are we talking about here? As a club's women's side become the perfect PSR cheat code?
Well, it's not cheating, is it, to sell something to yourself where the valuation is fair if you're selling it to another part of your business? It's an unfortunate byproduct of the ridiculousness of PSR. And what we saw, and when Stefan Borson was last in here, he made the point, and he made it very well, that this makes a mockery and drives a coach and horses through the argument that PSR has any real validity and teeth. And so it's not surprising it's the American ownership model that's in Aston Villa. It's seen the American ownership model in Chelsea find a way through some of its travails. I'm not sure how good it is for women's football. I spoke about women's football a few months ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, I was at an investors meeting with a group of very high net worth individuals looking at various sports opportunities and talking about the next opportunity really could be in the women's football space by just sort of disconnecting the men's and women's teams, making it an individual entity of its own and building it up to the next possible thing. But if you're selling these football clubs now at the inherent value that they might be in 10 years' time, you're taking all the value out of the market.
Yeah.
So it means the external investment into these spaces might be less, and it's only being done to achieve an outcome for the primary business, with all due respect to women's football, which is the men's football team.
Well, the thing is, selling the women's team maybe isn't the cheat code aspect of it. Selling it to themselves possibly is.
But that's like associated party transactions. Manchester City have just argued that Associated
It's
Party...
ridiculous.
No, hold on. Manchester City have just won a case against the Premier League, suggesting that associated party transactions should not be excluded or should be categorised in a certain way. And that means that all of a sudden all these loans that clubs were put in place with one another were suddenly undermined. So this is an associated party transaction. The problem is it's being created in a way, in the same way that associated party transactions were put into contention around how money was flowing between one environment to another. This is what you've created. You've created this now. You've created this. You've made football open for business, then you've closed the doors.
So if PSR was around in your day,
it was just.
Would you have sold your women's team to yourself?
If I'd found myself in a position of this nature, yeah. Why wouldn't I? I would have pulled all the levers in the same way that I would have capitalised my investment into the football club over 50 years to depreciate it over a lesser time so that I didn't hit the P&L so quickly. I would have done a raft of things because you're being forced to do it. The economics of the, it's like, I remember talking to the former owner of Juventus last summer, and he talked about sport and business. He said, if you're going to be a business, let you arrange yourself as a business. If you're going to be a sport, let you arrange yourself as a sport. So, and you've now got this situation where you've got neither. You've got both to some extent, but you're forcing the governance into a space that you opened up for business, and now you're closing it down. And you're closing it down because somewhere along the line, somebody told you that what happened at Reading or what happened at Bury is a blueprint for what's going to happen in the Premier League. The Premier League has been an unprecedented success.
Right.
And now what we're doing is we're turning inward on ourselves, and we're turning accountants and lawyers and financial experts into the showpiece event of a broadcasting platform, because they're now talking about things that have nothing to do with the sport. We're now talking about that. Once you allowed the fox into the hen house, whoever that fox was, whether it was Jack Walker, whether it was Roman Abramovich, whether it was Sheikh Mansour, or whoever it may have been, then the whole game changed. And that's why you have so many different tournaments and so much increase in value of sports franchises and the American model coming into play and all kinds of things. So this is why you've now got this ridiculous charade. This is why you've got this ridiculous... We're sat here in this room talking about XYZ person putting his shares in a blind trust for 12 months so that he doesn't appear to have decisive influence in one football club as opposed to another, etc., etc., etc. When realistically speaking, it is... The genie's out of the bottle. And so you're now finding that sophisticated, entrepreneurial, high-powered individuals or nation-states or private equity funds are going to drive a bus through the incompetence of the construction of the rules that were just tacked on top of one another over 150 years.
I know, but it's slightly ironic that you for years have been calling for sustainability in the game.
But
and then
on.
Profit and sustainability rules come along, and they're like... Bullet that.
No, I haven't. I've been campaigning for.
You want rid of it?
No, I've been campaigning for control over transfer fees and wages. Now, you tell me what sustainability is. You tell me what the purpose of profit is, because ultimately, you find me a more sustainable model than the PIF fund, whether you like it or you don't. Right? You find me a more sustainable position than a PIF fund that's got more money than God owning Newcastle. You tell me what sustainability is. You get the Premier League to tell you what sustainability is, because it's nonsense. And you tell me what profit is for. What's the purpose of profit? Is it to invest in the shareholders? Is it to invest in the football clubs? What is the purpose of profit?
So what's your version of sustainability?
A football club that's able to meet its economic responsibilities and not put itself in existential jeopardy, and has some controls and governance around it that doesn't allow the industry to be the Wild West. So whether that means they have to put a bond up that can be put in the central bank of the Premier League, so if a football club and an owner falls foul, like Roman Abramovich, or in my case where I ran out of money, or David Murray's case where he didn't want to continue bankrolling a football club when they got an HMRC investigation giving them 75 million quid of liabilities, etc., 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 etc. You put a framework around it, but what you don't do is you don't close it for business.
So if I was to give you a straight choice now before we leave this topic, go into next season with PSR or go into next season with no rule in that area whatsoever, what would you choose?
Well, I don't think you could have no rule, but I think you'd have better rules.
What does that look like?
Well, it looks like allowing people to be able to build football clubs in a way that is commensurate with their ownership model and allows investment. And I've always maintained the idea that a new ownership model should be the ones that are allowed to invest in first. So don't allow the Wild West to go forever. But if someone comes through the door, I buy your football club, I don't like what you've got. It's an ugly reflection. That doesn't look like I want to look in the mirror. So I want to invest in that football club. But I can't now because I've got the sins of the father who I bought the football club on the pseudo son that I'm not. So I want to be able to go, right, I want 4 years of being able to invest in this football club so I can chase Liverpool. I can come into the Premier League and I can go, I'm Nottingham Forest, I've got some Greek shipping magnate, like him or not like him, that's got more money than most people can imagine in their lives, that wants to build Nottingham Forest, but he can't, because if he does, he's going to get sanctioned and boot back from whence he came.
So you let Marinakis spend what he wants?
For a period of time.
You let Newcastle spend what they want?
For a period of time.
That sounds like the Wild West to me.
For a period of time.
But you didn't want Abramovich doing that.
No.
And he did.
No, I didn't say I didn't want Abramovich doing it. I said the consequences of Abramovich doing it have been this. And ultimately what we've got is the inflation of wages and salaries. But here's the flip side of this argument. When I was involved in football, I saw the net effect of it. And the net effect of what it's doing now is worse. Because my view was that it would suppress transfer fees, it would suppress wages. It didn't. So the actual benefit of what it was supposed to do never worked. So actually, what is worse, shutting the door and making sure that only Liverpool, only Man City, only Chelsea, only Arsenal, only those clubs can win anything. Is that what we want for sport? Because that's what we're going to get if we don't reverse this ridiculousness.
That was our pick of The Real Deal with Selco Builders Warehouse. For the latest special offers, pick up this month's Real Deals in-branch review online at selcobw.com.
The Real Deal on talkSPORT with Selco Builders Warehouse. Check out this month's Real Deals at selcobw.com.
Jim White and Simon Jordan live on talkSPORT. Thanks so much for all the messages that are still coming in. There's one there. Tell Simon we should get rid of PSR forever. He's right on that, but it's so damaging to the game. Profit and sustainability rules are damaging to the game. It's crazy, isn't it? But it's true.
It is.
That appears to be where we're at. On that, I know where Lisa O'Sullivan is at this lunchtime. Wimbledon, day 2. What are you thinking, Lisa?
I'm thinking that Johannes Munday has acquitted himself very well. 23-year-old from Hull, making his Wimbledon debut and making a debut at tour level, only just turned pro, but he's been drawn against Tommy Paul of the United States, who is now serving for the match, leading 6-4, 6-4, 5-2 against the young Brit. A big shock earlier. We saw Jessica Pegula, the women's number 3 seed, go out, beaten 6-2, 6-3 by Elisabetta Cocchiaretto, and we thought Pegula might have something special, having won the Baader Homburg title coming into Wimbledon. Heather Watson is into a deciding set against Clara Tauson of Denmark, and we'll be keeping an eye on all the Brits today. Jack Draper, who will be out on court number 1 later, amongst the big names watching on day 2.
Lisa, thank you very much indeed. If you were listening between 11 and quarter to 12, and judging by the reaction I see, many of you were, you would hear the former Rangers owner and chairman Sir David Murray, who joined the show ahead of the release of his new book, Metal, Tragedy, Courage and Titles. And Sir David, as I said, spent 45 minutes with Simon and myself and us live on the show. Was on YouTube and your smart TV. And of course, Sir David Murray, he made his name in the steel industry. His 2 decades of ownership of Rangers is indexed to both unprecedented success with 15 league titles, but followed by near disaster after an infamous sale of the football club in 2011 to the controversial businessman Craig White. I put it to Sir David that in spite of the huge success that he enjoyed at the football club, because he sold to White and thereafter what happened, was his legacy forever tainted?
Yeah, partly, but it wasn't all bad. You know, yeah, fine, you can pick on any bit on your career, Simon's career, and my career, good, bad and different. I mean, that was horrific what happened, and I accept that. But I've done quite a few other things in my life.
I know that, David, but in the book you say, looking back, I made a huge mistake. Rangers went into administration. After someone has been disqualified for 7 years, it's not that easy to carry out checks. I also believe it's down to the individual to make us aware of that. What, White? That White should made you aware of it?
Of course he should. He shouldn't have signed the paper, but he was struck off as a director. And he did it. He knew what he was doing, but nobody else knew. But all the second, why didn't everybody else come up with the facts? There was one letter I received that he'd been involved in a dodgy bus company years before, but that's not enough to stop doing a deal.
No, but David, you were selling the football club. It was on you, wasn't it?
Yes, I accept that. I'm not running away. I'm on here not denying that. I was the owner. The buck stops at the top. You know, there was a lot of other people involved with me. I don't see them. They've sort of gone for the hills. They've gone very quiet. But I accept the responsibility. And I've admitted that in the book, Jim.
I suppose, Simon, in many cases, you can't do wrong for right.
Well, he will know. I mean, the king is dead, long live the king, and that's a matter of fact. And he will know, looking back on it, that there were mistakes that were made and that the people that were around him perhaps didn't cover him in the way that they should do. And he will know that he's a motivated seller. And he will know the difference between proof of funds and funds being held to order in a solicitor's account. So he'll know all this. And I'm not going to tell somebody as successful as David Murray about the mistakes that he made, because I made plenty of them myself. And he looks back on it and he says, I made a mistake. But Craig White was a charlatan. And you know, we can all turn around with the benefit of hindsight. So how naive do you have to be? Well, these guys are... Everybody makes mistakes. And unfortunately, in this situation, the circumstances have diminished what, on the whole, was a remarkable tenure. I mean, if you listen to the man speak, he's a force of nature. His business successes are there to be reckoned with the highest. I mean, you meet some of these Scottish guys. I know Tom Hunter and I know Richard Emmanuel and Chris Gorman, some of these Scottish guys that are very successful. And they come from a certain cloth and they're very forthright, plain speakers, and they mean what they say, and by Christ, they say what they mean. And most of his experiences at Rangers will be of a time that most people would say, well, he was a wonderful thing for Rangers. But unfortunately, we live in a culture more in this society that you're remembered for the things that go wrong against you than you're remembered for all the things that you've done well.
I mean, whether the owner likes it or not, though, the onus is on the seller to get it right. There's Chancery at Sheffield Wednesday, and he's saying, yeah, of course I want to sell the club, but I want to get it to the right buyer. That doesn't change, does it? The onus is fair and squarely on the seller.
To a point. I mean, you can't be held in that situation in perpetuity, because who knows? I mean, I'm sure the people that sold Derby to Mel Morris all those years ago can't be held responsible for Mel Morris 5 or 6 years down the road having a change of financial circumstances.
Yeah.
In the situation surrounding David, he will know without me telling him that there are things that could have been done better.
Yeah.
And one of them was to make sure that the things I suspect that Craig White said he was going to do, there wasn't any opportunity for him not to have done it.
You've been up to a Rangers Celtic match with me, Simon, and I remember you were talking to me about it afterwards. But when you talk about Rangers and Celtic in Scotland, the game between the two is always incident-packed, and the hairs come up in the back of your neck. But nonetheless, there still is the existence of sectarianism when you talk about the old firm, when you talk about Rangers and Celtic. And I spoke to Sir David Murray about that with Simon this morning. And of course, it begs the question, how does the Scottish game ever get rid of it?
I don't want to get political here. It's a bit like the drugs problem in Scotland. People avoid it and don't attack it and don't attend to it. I mean, in Scotland, we've got the highest drug rate in Europe. It's disgusting. I mean, 30 people a week are dying of drugs. And the bigotry thing's the same. They won't address it. They won't take it chin on. And one of the reasons I lost a few Rangers supporters when I went and asked them to stop singing the Billy Boys, and a few of them turned against me. We need to move on. We're stuck in a time warp at times.
Some Rangers fans won't be all that pleased to hear that, of course.
Yeah.
Is he right that the authorities have got to do more? The Scottish government.
I questioned him. I said to him, who do you mean when you say they? And he talked about sectarianism being the responsibility of the government. He's absolutely right. It's the responsibility of the government about the healthcare situation. The SNP have been a joke in that respect. And we've known that for some time, rather than pointing their finger at Westminster, should get their own house in order. But the fact of the matter is it's an interesting one, without being neck deep in society, to understand whether it's a government issue to intercede with an issue that does pervade the society, and it would appear that its pinnacle of awareness is through the football clubs. The fact that it goes on in your society in Scotland is a fact of the reality of life, but the fact that it's highlighted more and amplified, I suspect, through the two football clubs might mean that he does have a point, that the government should be involving themselves to some extent to, I'm assuming it's a hate crime.
Yeah.
So the government are involved. It's about the enforcing of those hate crimes.
It's about the enforcement of it, isn't it? So, David Murray, if you're still listening, I have no reason to doubt that you are, thank you so much for joining us. He's an interesting guy, he's done so much in business and in football, of course.
He's a guy that if you don't respect, then you might not respect everything that comes out of his mouth, but I respected what he was saying. I respect his disposition, I respect his achievements, and I respect his candour, and I imagine his book will be the same.
Simon, brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Simon and I will be back tomorrow at 10. In the meantime, still hot out there. We're about to go out and just see how's hot. It's coming up to 1 o'clock this Tuesday lunchtime.